Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters Podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Today on the podcast, I'm speaking with returning guest Mike Stachowicz as he went out to IFIW this year to find out the latest and greatest at the International Fire Instructors Workshop. Now, the IFIW is a gathering together of firefighters, instructors, and scientists that happens every single year. They share knowledge and experience, and their goal of the IFIW is learning from each other and sharing knowledge worldwide amongst fire and rescue services. It was founded in 2008 by Stefan Svensson from Sweden, and they've been developing a whole host of knowledge since then. So in today's episode, we're going to cover a big spectrum. We're going to go all over the map with firefighting, with structural firefighting, with ventilation, a whole bunch of stuff. So there's some links. Check the links in this one. You will come across first the Fire Safety Academy. This is research based on fire training at your fingertips. Really, really useful website. You can go to the research back stuff. You can see seamless integration models on there. And then next you will see the Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency. That is a link that will take you to Fire Ventilation, which is Stefan Svensson's publication. That's the second one you can look at there. And then next you will see the Water and Other Extinguishing Agents. That link will take you to a PDF download. That's from Stefan Svardvist. Probably said that name wrong. Then next you can jump over and download the Enclosure Fires PDF from Lars Goran Bengtsson. Why are they doing these names? Why are they so difficult? That's a really interesting one. We've actually referenced this on the podcast before. This is again from the Swedish Rescue Service Agency. Some big ones. This is 194 pages on this one, but all super, super useful stuff. And then the home of the IFIW, and something we mentioned a few times in the episode, from the cfbt-be.com. You can go there, find a whole bunch more publications on ventilation, colleagues and suggested literature, learning from incidents, incident command systems, some leadership stuff on there, and some history on the IFIW as well. So lots to go at in today's episode. Mike is a dear friend of mine, very knowledgeable, very passionate young man, and a great developing leader in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. So it's a pleasure to bring him back on. Hope you enjoy it, and I will see you on the other side. What does better mean? Does that mean busier, less busy?
Less busy, and normally I wouldn't say that because I want to be busy. But the first one, between the two pumps and a ladder, we had 29 mobilizations.
What? In one shift?
Yeah. Dude,
that's not fun.
That's
just a shitload of AFAs.
No, we don't do AFAs anymore.
What the hell? So that's all calls? Genuine calls? Can't all be real calls. You ain't getting all them done in a shift.
I think there was 2 AFAs, because we still do sleeping risks, and 2 AFAs, few domestic smoke detectors, and the rest was just rubbish. Bonfires, bins, skips, 2 domestic floodings, 2 forcing entries, siege.
Siege?
Yeah.
Oh,
we do go to sieges quite regularly when the person is threatening maybe to set their flat alight or something, and police is kind of having a little standoff with them. So,
I always think those ones are a bit weird and pointless for us, because, not pointless. I like going, but you always end up getting some station manager being overly stupid and just complex. They're like, right, we're going to set the hose reel up on the edge of the cordon, and I want it primed, I want it running at 40 bar, and I want a hydrant, and also want to have a backup hydrant ready. And I'm like, if they say if they douse themselves in fire and set fire to themselves now, it's not going to happen very fast.
No.
Yeah, it's real. If they suddenly say, oh, I'm going to set fire to the lounge, and they actually set fire to the lounge, we could probably leave it for 3 or 4 minutes. And it's not really going to make a difference.
Yeah.
We'll just go in. So let the police do the police thing. And then when they're subdued, we'll go and put the fire thing out. Yeah. Because we're literally here at time of ignition. Okay. So it's not going to hit that fire growth. It's not going to flash over. I'm fairly confident, because it's 12 feet away. I can see it. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
I think the only concern would be if they set a light themselves. If you're going to use the hose reel, probably 1800 litres will be enough. You know?
There or thereabouts.
Yeah.
But no, it's one of them things where people to just start overcomplicating stuff. I think it's just out of boredom. And sometimes a justification to feel like I'm doing the right thing or I've added value. It's like when you sit in some meetings and it's a bit buzzword bingo.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I've noticed that a lot of times we are being pulled up for things that, or not pulled up, the things are put in place that are very basic and easy to understand, because that's the only thing, and I'm not saying anything wrong about officers, but that's the only thing that they understand really well, because it says that in the book, so I'm going to make sure that that is done, you know, and because I don't want to get involved in like proper tactics. Yeah,
but don't you sometimes think that, and this is probably a nice transition into our fire behaviour stuff, is like, we went through a period 15 years ago, maybe, and it still lingers, and again this time spectrum and development thing in different services is at different places, but I think people were getting promoted at one point in time for writing policies and procedures, so there was a lot of policies and procedures written at times, because there was also a fear of people not doing the right thing and whatever, and lots of great justifications, but then we became very prescriptive around the way to do things. And it always reminds me, and I use the analogy way too much, it's like, what are you trying to achieve on the outcome? And if you're not achieving the outcome, or if it feels wrong, and I always say like the Hitler soldiers analogy, and they're like, oh, we're only following orders. I'm like, yeah, but remember what you're trying to achieve. And you're like, yeah, but it says, wait a minute, watch, Mike, step 1. Ready? No, don't do that, because that's step 6. You've got to do step 2 next. Yeah. But you're like, yeah, but step 2 doesn't apply to this situation. Mike, do step 2. And you're like, absolutely. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's so John McDonough, isn't it? We've made, where's the Mark II robot? You know, it's like, what are you trying to do? Oh, where's follow the logic thread? Don't just do pantomime. It's like, what are you doing?
I've spoken with one of the officers recently in the service, and he was telling me the story exactly on that subject, that he turned up to an incident as a flexi officer, and it was a pan of food, but it was still, you know, contained on the stove, but it was flaming, and there was the fireys that turned up. It was, let's say, they were not very experienced, and they just followed their training. They've done step A, step B, step C. And so they were applying water at every doorway, you know, couple of pulses. And there was no smoke in the place. So basically they flooded the place before they even got to the kitchen. And then there was nothing to do in the kitchen, you know. And the guy said...
Coming up to the flat, then the cluster flat door, then the room of origin door. And someone's your fire investigation's walking through going... It's all this water. Why is there so much water? Is there a leak upstairs? Is there a bath flooded upstairs or something? Oh, that's the BA crew. You know what we're doing?
You know, that's the disadvantage of introducing robotic procedures. You know that.
I think about it like when you're learning to drive and you're in a massive empty car park, and the instructor goes, right, we're in an empty car park, Mike. So we're just going to try and turn in squares. We're just going to go around there, turn squares, and you go. Checking my mirrors, and it's, we're in an empty car park, Mike, but I know what you're saying. For the next few turns, you don't have to verbalise it, because we're just going to try and... Chris Westfield, who we just released an episode with, he was a Telstar House incident, he gives a wonderful description, if you heard it. It was like procedure and experiential learning, and it looks at like a graph, doesn't he? And he loves that, and he's like, The better you get with experiential learning, the more you don't take shortcuts, but you interpret what is applicable in this scenario, like your door entry analogy there, or example, sorry. And those things are so good, but you can score organizational points, with people for saying the right thing, doing the right thing.
I think we've procedured ourselves to kind of not out of the job, but definitely the overarching principle is the procedure as opposed to any end game of what we're actually here to do. And I would like the procedures to be more of a guidance, to have boundaries, and you within those two boundaries you can navigate your way through using your experience, your training, but you cannot go outside of them.
I was at a multi-vehicle RTC a couple of weeks ago, and there was a watch manager already in attendance, so I turned up just to support, equal rank, blah, blah, blah. And he sectorised it. In the vehicle he was working on, chatting with the paramedics, and I just went over to say we finished our education. Paramedic came up to ours, assessed them, cleared the C-spine, and was like, right, yeah, just step out, you're fine. Get them out, don't need to do anything. Went over to that one, and seemed as though they were having a heated discussion. But I was just going over to update him and say, look, my sector, blue cars, sorted. Yeah. And he was saying, we're taking the roof off because we're going to keep the C-spine in neutral alignment, was what the incident commander was saying. And the paramedic was like, I'm happy for them to come out that side door. Yeah. And he's like, no, we don't do that. And he's pointing over at my car. And I'm not saying we did anything right or wrong. They could have a broken neck. But the paramedic is the subject matter expert. And they're saying, I've cleared that C-spine. Let's have them out. And this guy was just like, and I was kind of there. I wasn't going to be that dick who takes the paramedic's side. But I was like, no, to be fair, he is right. Our procedures tend to do this. But I mean, if you're 100% confident, then and I was trying to have the same conversation I just had over there in a mediating fashion, whilst not stepping on anyone's ego. But I was a bit like, dude, in my internal mind, I'm like, the paramedic says get him out the door.
Yeah.
Why are we going to piss about for another 20 minutes cutting all these posts?
There is the exit project thing.
Tim Nutbeam, we had him on,
a few years ago now with Tim Nutbeam, and that's still not.
We need to have him back on actually, because I'd love to ask why it's not so heavily embedded
not
yet.
Widely known, and I think NFCC are trying to get it into the NOG, but it's been probably 2-3 years now since it came out, and
I think it's a lot longer than that.
There's so many people not aware of it, and once you read those statistics that only 0.7% of people in RTCs actually do suffer critical spinal injuries, and all those things, you do think to yourself that no, we shouldn't be sacrificing the speed of extrication against the immobilization, and
do you want to know when it came out? So for the listeners' benefit, so I've just pulled up Tim's stuff. Tim Nutbeam and Rob Fenwick founded the Exit Project in 2007.
Wow.
When they worked together with a watch manager, pre-hospital team providing critical care at the roadside, personal experience of road traffic collisions, the tragic consequences led to the formation of the Exit Project. Then, following on from that, in 2017, Mike Stachowicz was seconded from Cleveland Fire Brigade to give it another boost with the Exit Project to support and deliver even more Road Safety Trust grant-funded work. So 2007, just to timestamp this for future listeners, we're 2024 now. So this is, my maths say, 17 years.
Yeah, I think that's when all the research was done, but it was actually...
So the Mike Stachowicz thing will have been when it got proliferated, so that's 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And majority of, and I'm not casting dispersions here, but I would say majority of my service have never heard of it, and it's a shame because it works in our favour. But then you know the score that we turn up and it's an RTC. Everybody's dying to use those tools because finally they can be let loose on the car and destroy it. In the name of safety and professionalism.
Jaws of life, Mike.
But maybe safety and professionalism is actually letting that person just step out of the vehicle.
I know.
Because then they're going to get to hospital quicker, and the intervention is going to be quicker, and so on, so on, so on. So, but then again, we all live and learn, and unfortunately nothing changes. But actually, that segues us into our maybe main discussion about evidence-based firefighting or operations in general.
So let's just connect the dots back for 1 second. So this episode is brought to you in partnership with MSA Safety. Today we have them to thank for the improved firefighter safety through connectivity in their brand new connected firefighter system. At the center of the connected firefighter platform is the MSA M1 SCBA with telemetry. That integrates straight in with the Luna system, which is a wireless all-in-one device creating an independent search and rescue network, providing edge detection, enhanced personal thermal imaging, while simplifying post-scene reporting and data retention. All of this then plugs into the FireGrid system for cloud-based connectivity, real-time information, and data-driven decisions for the incident commander. MSA are truly taking massive strides in the future of improved firefighter safety through connectivity in the brand new MSA Connected Firefighter platform. Now back to the show. You and I have been friends for a very long time. I'm very, very, very lucky. People don't know you are one of my secret superpowers. You have the relentless passion in pursuing all of this stuff in the darkness and then bringing these things to the light of other people. You've had various frustrations in and around different services and sometimes in the service you work for and with me. Because you would probably run a much better podcast than me. A, you wouldn't interrupt people as much. B, I think you know a lot of the data a lot better than I do. But we've been friends for a long time. We've spent some time together. But what I love most about you as well is you go out and do the thing. So you've gone and done quite a number of international courses. Just for people that haven't heard our previous episodes or stuff like that, because it's like 4.5 years from doing the podcast now. Yeah. We met most recently at the Lancashire event with two of your friends who you introduced me to as well, John and Carol, and Lewis. Lewis went out with you as well to IFIW, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes.
Yeah. So this is a wonderful little team of Avengers. And also, we should acknowledge a bajillion other people who are doing the same stuff that perhaps just don't sit in our sphere of awareness. Dave from Manchester, awesome dude. Yeah. Great resources as well, and I'm sure every service has this person, and we want to acknowledge and support them as well. But for yourself, just give people some background on what is IFIW, which is going to be some of the origin of our conversation today. When did maybe you first come across it, and maybe connect a couple of dots for people of how you know these people that we've just been talking about.
Right. So IFIW stands for International Fire Instructors Workshop. It started in 2008 by Professor Stefan Svensson. I'm sure you had him on the podcast.
We have.
In Sweden. I think he's a professor at Lund University, maybe. I might be wrong. But he works for MSB, which is like a civil protection agency in Sweden. And his idea at the time was to bring academics, fire researchers, and fire practitioners, i.e. firefighters and fire instructors, together in some kind of fashion and exchange experiences, views, and knowledge. Because he noticed over the years that the scientists and academics do their own thing in silos, and then we do our own thing. And obviously these disciplines overlap quite heavily. So that was his idea, and the first IFIW in Sweden took place in 2008. And those were the as we now say, core members of IFIW, with John McDonough, with Sean Rafael, with Stefan Svensson, Stefan Svarkvist, who another Swedish professor who wrote the book Water and Other Extinguishing Agents, which I would recommend to anybody.
We've made that available. There's a free version of that. Yeah, people can access it on the Patreon thing, but it's free. You don't have to pay for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's. I'm sure it's free on MSB website as well, English version. So it's a brilliant resource. So that's how it all started, and from then on, I came across it first probably on YouTube. A good few years ago when I think there were some lectures from IFIW 2015 uploaded on YouTube, and I started listening to them. That's probably the first time I came across John McDonough. I think Lars Axelson was there at the time. Obviously, another
Lars has got a number of
guest.
them on his YouTube page as well.
Yes,
He's
so
got
maybe
the
that's where I
Stefan
found them.
Sardvist from 2018 one.
And that was it, and I was hooked. You know, I thought, wouldn't it be great to be there, you know, one day? And basically that was my lifetime ambition to
One of your lifetime ambitions.
yeah, of course, to invite myself over, because IFIW is a specific event that you can't just buy a place and go and sit there. Some of it, sometimes it's a week-long event, and sometimes there is a like couple of days open conference where people can pay and listen to lectures, but the rest of it is within that core group. So, and then I've really was aware of it and was trying to get myself to it in 2020. But then the COVID hit, and that never happened. So, and you know, when I say I wanted to get there, I just wanted to pay money and be within the audience. So in 2020, it was organized online, just as a series of lectures, and the same in 21. So that was because obviously COVID times. Then 22, nothing happened. And then last year in Spain, I was approached by Carol Lambert and invited to speak.
I know you were.
Which was purely on the back of my visit to Brussels to Carol and training with them. So, and to be honest with you, I was like, what? Why would they want to listen to me? You know, like who would want to listen to me? You know, at the time, you know, maybe I've been in 15 years, 16 years, and I thought, what a pressure. You know, I'm not going to only talk to my guys on the watch or whatever. You know, I'm going to talk to like world-class experts. You can't bullshit them. They will call out your bullshit very quickly if you start making stuff up.
But also, it's more of a awareness from a perspective point on someone who is very passionate about fire behaviour specifically, but also the general fire and rescue service activities from a UK perspective. So it's not inherently to say that what you say to them is bullshit or right or wrong, but it's more that this is what's made it through the filter. You've pushed all this stuff your side of the filter, and it's gone through some strange osmosis, translation, Chinese whispers, and reinterpretation. And this is what got spat out the other end, UK side, from your experiences. So just to recap on a few of those, and actually we'll stick some links in here. So a great place for people, and somewhere we go for a lot of our publications, as well as CFBT-be.com. We'll put a link in
that's Carol's
for this.
website.
That's Carol's website, and in there people can see the breakdown of the workshops. 2008 Sweden, and then it was Australia, Canada, US, Germany, Croatia, Poland, Belgium, Canada, Hong Kong, Sweden, the Netherlands, USA in 2020, and then as you've already spoken about,
the USA one never happened.
Yeah, they've still got it listed on the thing, but they did have a few gaps. And you can also access the videos and the presentations. So there's a great list of resources on there.
Carol's website is just unbelievable.
It's great,
with all his articles there as well.
And they also translate them for people. So Carol's not UK based, but there's French, Netherlands, British, and I think there's 5 or 6 other translations on there. A lot of this is fire behaviour based, but there's also a lot of stuff on ventilation. There's some incident command and some leadership on there as well. And again, we'll provide that link for people to come have a look at. So when you said you went over to Sweden, and I know we've already spoken about this because I remember you sending me all the pictures and stuff, and we have had conversations before. Yeah, Spain. No. When you went first time for the course.
Oh, to Belgium.
Sorry. Thank you. I apologise. Give people those first impressions of surrealness, because there was several things that you sent me, and you're like, dude, they do this.
Yeah,
and you were like, what the hell? And then like we had the clip-on mask stuff, and there was different iterations with flash hoods, and just touch on a few of those surreal moments where people were like, we never do that in the UK, and you're like, well, they do it, and they're fine.
And it's a typical kind of, you know, and I go back to John McDonough a lot because I spent a lot of time. You know, this year I've heard and met John McDonough 4 times in 4 different countries.
Hey.
You know, so I'm already fed up with him. But when I went to Brussels the first time, it was very much a culture shock. And I was the only person from the UK. There was some Dutch people there, obviously Australians, Germans. And so I was kind of on my own with my thoughts, you know. I couldn't share it with anybody, that it was blowing my mind every day. And as you mentioned, you know, one of the biggest thing is the clip-on masks, which is and whenever you speak to somebody in the UK about it, the first question they ask, does it not come off, or does it not leak? And I'm thinking to myself, oh, but if it did, they wouldn't use it. You know, they're not stupid. They're not stupid. You know, if it didn't, and I'm sure the clip-on masks I used, Belgium, France, Switzerland, Finland, so quite a few countries use them. So
for audio people that don't know what we're talking about, this fits the Fire Heroes and the MSA. It's clips onto a lot of masks. The small clip that you have on the side of your helmet that most people probably think is solely for a torch, because there is some attachments that you fit a torch to the side of the helmet. There's effectively a little L-style bracket steel clip, like a hook. Yes, sorry, that simply goes left and right, so it attaches to the helmet versus your head with a spider strap or anything like that, which again, you know, that pressure and that lack of thermal space and all that jazz, that compression, additional stuff, because certainly for new recruits, when they stick them on, they come out big red marks on the back of their head because they've just cranked it up and snapped the spider strap or whatever it might be. And also it allows for that on and off, because this is another one of my big frustrations around, you know, BA is a form of PPE effectively. So I wouldn't say to Mike, right, we're off the truck now, put your helmet on, don't take it off again until you get back on the truck. Like, it's a piece of PPE, and when you feel you're in danger of something hitting you on the head, like your visor, I trust you to put that down just before you're about to make a cut and blah, blah, blah. And this feeds into like the Manchester and some of the challenges of the FBU about deploying above bridgeheads and when should you go under air. I would love to just have well-trained, not that we don't, or to have firefighters that we believe and genuinely have faith in their ability of training and their dynamic risk assessments to assess when that PPE is appropriate to put on. But again, so because the Americans do this, and they don't actually, a lot of them don't have the clip-on masks. They do, you know, take their enormous helmets off and stick their masks on. But for this, that quick on and off, so nice, isn't it? And
this year I was in Belgium again, and there were a couple of fantastic guys from LFB, Dave and Colin, and it was so nice to have them there, because then we could kind of bounce off each other and say, oh, this is amazing and this is amazing, but at the same time acknowledge when we actually do something well, you know. And so the clip-on masks, and for somebody who can't picture it, you already wear your flash hood on under your helmet. So the flash hood's already on, it sticks around your head, and you just clip the mask on it. And it doesn't seem to matter as much if the flash hood ends up under the seal or over it or on the side. It, like, the Belgian guys don't pay any attention to that. I was very stressed about it because I thought, surely I'm going to die. And the first wear I'm going to go in and die.
They come out with blisters around my face.
Yeah. Because obviously there will be exposed skin somewhere. And I will die. But yeah, nothing like that happened. You just clip it on. It takes about 3 seconds. And that's for somebody like me who's not used to it. And off you go.
Again, it's an interpretation of what the flash is doing as well, because I remember having a conversation with a service down south when I was there recently doing some assessing, and having a bit of a conversation around this. And they said, no, it's for contamination. That's what your flash is for. I said, okay. What flashes do you have? And they showed me, because I was thinking maybe they had the PGI ones with the particle, and they didn't.
Right. Okay.
I was like, well, this is just a cloth. You just put the cloth on your head, which is great for some thermal protection. It says that's not protecting you from any contamination. And they go, yeah, but it stinks when you take it off. Yes, because it is getting contaminated, but your skin also stinks because it's just passing through. It's like it's like my t-shirt. It will capture some stuff, but that's not the primary purpose of what it was designed for. I said the initial design was thermal protection, and then other companies, PGI only being one of them, have put a particulate barrier within that. But then again, it's just understanding that why behind it, isn't it? So that was a surreal moment for you. What other things sort of jumped out at you? When it's like the first time you find running water, isn't it? And like you say, you didn't have anyone with you, so you want to turn to someone and go, "Look, they've got running water," and he's like, "Yeah, we have running water everywhere, dickhead."
That's exactly what it was like. Everything from their hose deployment. Obviously, they don't do stuff like entry control officer.
Tell us why about that, because I've given very bad reinterpretations of what Lars said to me on the podcast. But I'd love to hear your side of what the justification was, because I'm sure I bastardize it every time I try and say it again. The team here at the podcast are extremely excited to announce our brand new partnership with Patrol Store UK. Patrol Store has been serving the UK's police, fire and emergency communities and first responder sector since 2008, providing leading brands such as Hikes, Magnum, 511, Nebo, Op Zulu, Highlander, AKU and many, many more of our favourites. They are now also supplying bespoke uniform, PPE and station workwear to fire services around the UK. So for all our listeners that are part of your USAR, your HEART team, your ISAR team, your armed response teams, your fire investigation, your NALO, your hazmat and all of the training departments that have got your own budgets, be sure to get the absolute best for your team at a realistic price by contacting Aaron and the team at Patrol Store and referencing the Firefighters podcast. Patrol Store will also be taking part in our listener competition giveaways, as well as providing unique discounts to podcast listeners. So for people that are always asking about Hikes boots as an example, that is one unique discount code that is coming to you very soon through Patrol Store. We've also got some incredible bags. I mean, the Op Zulu bags are a game changer. So the really Gucci and expensive tactical black bags that everyone's using in CrossFit workouts and taking to the gym and taking to stations? Well, they've basically got that, but it's made better and costs less, because they're not slapping some Gucci expensive brand name on it and it's giving you what you want on a first responder salary. Be sure to keep your eyes in the notes of the episodes for links to unique offers and discount codes. And if you're looking to buy well and buy once, be sure to get in the notes and head over to Patrol Store UK. Now back to the show.
They are aware that such a thing exists in other services, but there is still a lot of them. They want to have freedom. And maybe they trust their firefighters more, I don't know. But the firefighter knows when to put the mask on. And because the putting of the mask or taking it off takes a split second, there isn't a process around it. It's just a thing. And again, John McDonough often mentions how much training do you need to wear BA? You just stick it on your face and it works, and breathe.
Someone gave me a good description of pumping recently as well in a similar capacity, because they were and it was an international firefighter, because I was struggling. Because they were talking about what's the entry control officer do. I said, they do loads of stuff. They take notes, they look at cylinder contents, send messages, remember stuff, organise people. And when he was like, well, the cylinder contents, do your BA wearers not monitor their cylinder content then? I said, yeah, that's in National Operational Guidance and it's an accessible criteria. He said, so hang on a minute. What about your pump operator? He says, does your pump operator manage the tank? I says, yeah. And they said, do they have someone else sitting somewhere with a board monitoring the tank of water for the pump? And I was like, yeah, I get what you're saying. I know. And I know we're being a bit facetious and silly for people that are listening, but isn't it kind of the same?
I can tell you a brilliant story, but
go on.
At one point when we were in Belgium this year, and the other guys from the UK were there, and every time we were shocked by something, the Belgian guys would have said, "Oh, if you're that shocked, that means you must be doing it totally different." And what do you do? And then eventually, after a week, we told them, right, let's settle this. We're gonna tell you what we do now.
Yeah.
And so they all ears. And so we kind of started describing that probably on the job, we wouldn't do far off what you do.
No.
But the way we train is a lot different. The difference between our training and operational side, for some reason, is vast.
It's efficiency and common sense. But that's so dangerous, isn't it? Because as soon as you start going, I understand what Mike's saying, but he's not even on the fucking trucks. So I'm just going to do my version. Because then when the shit does hit the fan, inevitably at some point, and you and I, probably you more than me, know far many of these incidents, and we've shared a bunch of them on the podcast where something does go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
What I hold up and wave against you is a procedure. And everyone goes, oh, no one does that. Doesn't matter, Mike. Yeah. That is what we've all agreed to do. Yeah. But sorry, you were explaining.
So anyway, so we told the Belgians, right, we'll tell you how we train. This is going to be. So we told them about the entry control officer, and they kind of accept that, yeah, there is a guy who checks things before we go in. And obviously they were being facetious and saying, oh, you as a professional firefighter can't dress yourself and all that. But
do they tuck you in? Do they tie your hands together and all that sort of stuff? Give you a snack.
So there you go. So we're telling them this is the guy briefs you, and then off you go. And they say, right, and you go in. I said, no, not yet, because I need to do my pre-entry check on the set. And then they say, oh, so you don't check sets when you start duty? I said, no, we do, but we just do that another one just in case. And they say, all right, fair enough, and then you go in. I said, no, then we check the radio, then we check the branch, and then we go to the door and we touch the door. And they thinking like, what are you doing? I said, we're checking it for heat. Well, that's fine. But don't you wear gloves? So yeah, we wear gloves. And they're saying, so why can't you use a tick? I said, yeah, good point, but mainly we don't. So that's, and then we sprayed some water on the door, and they now thinking like, are they gonna go in? And then we spray the water. We wait a bit, and then we'll have a little chat between us which side of the door we're going to be on, and now they're looking at us like they thought we were making this stuff up, and so we have a chat, oh, you're going to be on this side, and you crack the door open, I will lean in, I'll put some water up, and then I'll come back and we'll have a chat again, and then we'll decide what we're going to do, and are you happy with this? Yes, I'm happy. Are you happy? Yes, I'm happy. Okay, so let's do that. And then we go in, and they say, "Oh, finally!" Right? Yeah. But then I said, that's not the end, Then we go in.
Yeah, then you go in. Well, it depends.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We might not.
We might do it again. We might actually go back and tell someone what we saw.
And then we go in. We do a gauge check, and they say, "Oh, but didn't that guy outside just check your gauge?" I said, yeah, but we do another one just in case. And then we stand up, obviously, because you stand up in fires, and we turn around and we start touching the door again. And so they, what are you looking for now? I said, we landmark the door, so we know this is the door we came in. And they look like, now it's a disbelief in their faces, and they're saying, is the hose going through the door not indication enough that that's the door you came in? I said, yeah, maybe, but we still need to touch the door.
Yeah, but it might be a hose reel manufacturing building, and there might be many hose reels in there. I always say to people, unless this house makes hose reels in their side hustle, chances are the only hose reel you've got is probably attached to the fire engine outside.
Yeah, and obviously we're talking here about domestic stuff. But and then I tell him, and then we swap places, and he checks left hand side of the door, and I'll check the right hand side of the door, and then we are ready to go. And they saying, right, and you go straight to the fire. I said, well, if we're using the tick, which a tick usage is still very early on, I think, in our services. Mm-hmm. Some services use it more, some services use it less. We are still, I think, struggling with it a little bit.
I think we've all been given it, but Andy was a great episode, wasn't he? Around how much training do we get on it?
Yeah.
What are you doing with it?
Because there is very little input, guys don't know what they're looking at. All the input everybody got on tick was this button switches it on and white is hot. and go in. And I don't think that's enough. But so because they don't see what they would like to see, they just stop using it. And then obviously, and then we told them that we need to follow the certain route. Even the fire is somewhere, but because we're not using tick efficiently and effectively, we still need to follow the walls and because that was another big thing in Belgium for me, that they didn't follow walls. They just go straight to the fire. The tick is their primary means of orientation, and they go in, check right, left, which side is higher temperature. I'm going to where the higher temperature is. And just progress.
Higher temperature, flow path, whatever the giveaway might be.
Convection currents on the tick, and they just go straight to it. There was rarely an exercise where we've done in different burn buildings that the firefighting team wasn't on the fire within 30 seconds maybe from going through the front door. And they manage the hose really well. There is never a hose in loops on the floor. It's always a straight line from the front door to where they are. And so that's their secondary means of orientation. If for whatever reason tick fails, they just follow the hose back. And yes, it's not perfect, there could be two hoses, but normally they will still go out through the same door.
That's what Lars was saying about the Echo, I think. He was like, well, that person could be at the door, managing or supporting on the ventilation profile, but also managing the hose, because we get so much delay in coils over shoulders and throwing it left or right or snagging on this or that. And he's like, you've got someone stood there just looking at cylinder contents. They could be helping out, Yeah.
And I do think, especially in a domestic environment, and obviously this is my opinion, that we should have maybe a bit more authority on that. If I've got, I don't know, up to 2 teams, I don't need that guy. I can, as an incident commander, I can manage 2 teams, and I know where I've sent them. But that's.
What's the numbers for rapid deployment for you guys? Are they the same
for rapid deployment?
Yeah,
one team. One team of 2 can go under rapid deployment. Our stage 1 is up to 6 teams, and then obviously you need to 6 members. 6 wearers, 6 wearers, yes. Yeah. So
3 teams usually, yeah.
And then you're going into stage 2 already. So we're rapid deployment one team.
First 2 teams I'd leave under rapid deployment personally. You could go stage 1 as soon as you've got resources, but I'd much prefer that second pump up and a BA or whatever to be going in as a team of 2. Once you've got the 3 trucks there, you've got 2 drivers doing nothing. Doing nothing. They'll set up a casualty handling area. They'll be command support or whatever. But I can get my 2 IC, 3 IC to do those things. I want to get people in there. I want some aggressive firefighting. I want to fill that building.
Again, the big thing in Brussels was the speed. They not only did, I never want to use the word aggressive because its connotation is reckless.
Yes, true.
And so I would say they were very purposeful.
With intention.
But also their level of task skill was off the scale. They were moving like rats up a drain pipe in that environment.
Well, that session that you ran with supporting John on hose management in Lancashire was beautiful. Yeah. And again, that blew a lot of people's minds because we were running, was it 52s or 64s? They are 45s in Lancashire. I can't remember.
45s, I think.
Okay, 45s. And what was it in Belgium and Sweden and other places? Do they standard 45s?
45s or 38s.
38s? Ooh,
Brussels,
nice.
I think Brussels as a city, because they are separate department, I think they use 38s, but the rest of them use 45s.
So again, that speed of attack, muscle memory, with
as well.
A lay flat hose, significantly heavier. Do you think that's one of our faults in a lot of places are just minimums 52s? I don't know, and you might know, and we're not going to try and trip each other up, but it's like, I don't know how many places run 45s still. Would you say it's more or less than 50% have 45s? As a finger in the air guess. I'm going to say less.
I think it should be more. However, I am aware of many brigades transitioning to 51, 52, whatever you want to call it.
A lot of the assessments that I go to, and again, that might just be because they're the sort of people that we go to, but I bet I've been to 20 different services. And I bet I've only seen 45s 1 or 2 times.
Well, have you?
Yeah.
But, I was of belief, and to be fair, I was the advocate of that as well a few years ago, to have 52 mil hoses, but purely for high rise.
Yeah, there's an argument for the flow rate. Yeah,
to prevent a higher friction loss and have a higher flow rate. But for the domestic environment, if for times immemorial we were using hose reels with, and we still use 19 mil hose reels, so we've got 100 liters a minute. To then progress onto 52 is a massive jump. Yeah. Even the 45, if you pump for it, you can probably get 600 liters a minute out of it.
Yeah.
And in a domestic environment, I don't know what you need to do to need 600 liters a minute.
No.
I don't know why that change happened, and why, when it did happen for maybe high-rise purposes, why then the 45s were bent and we're just going to use 52s anyway. And
yeah, it may have been a stock resource analogy, but they're all the same couplings, aren't they?
Yeah.
So just go a little bit deeper for me on the hose management stuff, because we did another great session in Manchester with Dave and the team, and Lewis was present for that, talking about different packs. We obviously went through a series of lay flat ones with the Cleveland and the Denver and obviously the Dutch roll, and there was another one, I can't remember, obviously Cleveland, Denver. Was there a New York pack? I can't remember.
There is a New York pack, yes.
Yes, we went through a series of those, but that was more deployment.
Yes.
So I think Cleveland and stuff, people use that as a quick deployment pack, but really it's meant for solely high-rise and the way it deploys in a stairwell and the loops so you can roll them and all this stuff. I really like the Denver packs. But talk to me about the different approaches you saw, because what you demonstrated in Lancashire, the method of movement with those 45s, and also maybe talk about a little bit about mobility, because we had some conversations around mobility, because a lot of the very experienced and passionate instructors that were there were just saying, I get it, I don't think I could physically do that, not because I'm not strong enough, but like John McDonough and yourself there was a big deep lunge over that front knee, driving off that back knee with a look. Just talk to us a little bit. I know again it's super difficult, but we'll try and provide some videos. What were you doing a little bit different? We've got some links to some socials where we have shared that, and there's lots of YouTube descriptions of it.
So just to kind of put into context for people who are maybe just listening, what we were doing in Lancashire, the branch person was obviously on the branch, and then number 2 was making a big loop, big 6 meters loop maybe, and coming back to the branch person. So they were right next to each other, but there was about 6 meter loop between them. So that helps with sharing the tick information, which usually the number 2 will have. But also, what tends to happen if you've got a straight line of hose between you and number 1 and 2, if number 2 pushes the hose forward, that pushes number 1 forward. And he's more liable to fall. It's more difficult for him to control and maybe point the nozzle up to gas cool and all that.
It's that bit for me. It's a bit like when you stood on a main jet outside a factory and someone's right behind you supporting you, that you're fighting them all the time a little bit. And when you want to be dynamic, certainly in a compartment firefighting, and again, we obviously have some articulating branches which also help with this, but you want to be nice, and you need that 3 meters behind you, because that's what we always say, isn't it? A 3 meter straight line behind you. Don't have the frictional loss, don't have that kick left or right. That is obvious, and this is what's most frustrating about so many of those things. It was obvious, but like no one had done it.
and it's a nice way of doing it, because then number 2, when he pulls the hose, it has totally no effect on number 1. He's totally independent. And then the beautiful thing is that when I, as number 2, we'll get to the middle of the either bigger compartment or let's say middle of the corridor in the domestic, I can drop my loop, and probably the loop that was created, the 6 meters spare, now it will get us into every compartment. Even if I've snagged my hose and run out, I can just drop that loop and we still got another, let's say 6 meters to play with. And so that was really, well, for me, it was revolutionary. First time I've seen it in Belgium 2-3 years ago. Yeah. But what you're saying about the mobility issue, I have, because John and, to be fair, the rest of the world are really big on staying low in fires.
Yeah,
we're still learning that thing, and what guys telling me whenever I speak about it is, "Oh, I can't be on my knees for so long," and I totally get it, But if you're an instructor in a training center, you can probably have knee pads under your fire gear or even over it. It doesn't matter. And if you're operational crew, you're not going to do it every day.
No.
You will not be expected to do it, probably if not even once a month. No. Maybe if you do it once a year. And
I wouldn't want to sit in a harness for 30 minutes every day because it would be very uncomfortable. Luckily, I almost never do it.
Mm-hmm. And then if we're very proficient at moving low, then we get to the fire quicker. Then maybe you only need 30 seconds on those knees to get to where you want to be. And, because
it's less arduous for you. Yes, it might be arduous, the physical positioning, but you're not stood up in all the heat.
But and that's, when I was first faced with that question when I went to Ukraine to train the guys there. The guy, we were talking, and they were volunteers. They never seen a BA set in their life, and we brought BA sets with us, and we were giving them very, very quick, basic fire behavior class. And I was telling them, look, when the fire burns, the hot gases go up and out of the opening, and your cool air comes in low. And at that point, one of them raised his hand and says, "Oh, I've got a question." And I said, "Yeah, go on." And he says, "Oh, am I getting this right, that up here, the hot gases are up here and cool air is down here?" I said, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And he says, "Right, so why are you telling us to stand up?" Because obviously I was teaching them the UK way of BA shuffle and searching. And I didn't know what to answer.
Yeah.
I for the first time...
Don't question the instructor. Just... Because I said so. It's the parents' answer.
For the first time in my life, being brought up with the BA shuffle, and I couldn't compute. How did I never think about that? How could I have all this knowledge about fire behavior and never think that maybe standing up in fires isn't that good? And I get a lot of pushback on it, and people are saying, "Oh, but if it's not hot in this, obviously if it's hot, I'm going to go down." But then if it's hot and you go down, then you're improvising because you've never trained in that low position. So you're just making stuff up now.
I think from my personal, I want to say studies, sounds a bit like I've been doing something academic, reading stuff and things and listening to people, the thermal effect, the heat stress, heat exhaustion, disorientation is a progressive thing.
Absolutely.
And it's harder, even when we look at Paul's Hair World and things like that. Yeah. When did this person become disorientated? Was it here? Was it there? Was it when? Was it now? In buildings in the 70s, 80s, where we had old factories and people did fall through floors, the last fatality in the service that I work for was someone falling down 3 floors through a floor. And it's a sudden thing. So it's a bit like with rope access. Gravity will give you feedback really fast. Yeah. Everything else is like a future problem. And like, was that the problem or not the problem, Mike? Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe it was 20%. Maybe it was 80%. I don't know. But why did he fall through the floor? Or why did she fall through the floor? Because they didn't check the floor. Do you know what I mean? It becomes a really instantaneous risk that if you don't stay low, over this period of 20 minutes, 30 minutes that you're wearing, it's going to be harder. Theoretically, you are going to be less aware the longer you're in there because heat exhaustion, heat stress, blah, 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 blah. But if you definitely don't check the floor and that bit happens, you only need to get that wrong once. Yeah. So I feel from my listenings and learnings and understandings, we've taken that from our own experiences. It's like me being petrified of snakes or dogs because a dog bit me once. And you've been around dogs all your life and you go, yeah, I mean, they've given me little nibbles, but like I've never really been attacked by a dog. But I go, my mum died from a dog attack. And you go, well, I'm not surprised. You're really cautious around dogs then, Pete. Do you know, that's probably a crap analogy. But I feel like our learnings and our focus on stuff has perhaps come from that.
What we're also missing, and maybe we don't appreciate it as much, is Andy Stans, who you had on the podcast as well, talks about it a lot. We don't understand how our gear works, our PPE. It retains heat to certain time. Every PPE's got thermal protection index, I think it's called. I can't remember now. And that it can withstand certain amount of heat for certain amount of time. But if it's getting saturated with that heat, obviously it will take 100 degrees for longer than it takes 500 degrees, but it still accumulates that heat. And once you reach that barrier, you are feeling hot and you're getting burned. Despite that, maybe the temperature isn't as high as... Because you'll read on your label that, it can withstand 1,000 degrees for 20 seconds. Yeah. But I was never anywhere near 1,000 degrees, so why is it burning? So that's one thing that we don't understand.
It's thermal capacity, isn't it? So it's reaching the thermal capacity at a certain point, and you go, well, okay, Mr. Expert, how can I reduce this? Well, I mean, stay out the flow path, maybe stay low. Be in there. It's a bit like it is radiation. It's heat radiation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like saying, how can I limit this? Time distance shielding. Don't spend as long in there. Yeah. Try and distance yourself from the heat layer, so stay low. And shield yourself, stay out of the flow path. All this, it's the same analogy, isn't it? So you're saying if I was quicker and if I stayed low, I would reduce my thermal radiation. Yeah. Absolutely. No, we're going to go really slow and stand up if that's all right. And then moan about heat exhaustion and how crap my PPE is. And you go, well, you're not listening then. I designed the kit. Why don't you listen to me?
And then we're saying, I need to go out because it's too hot.
How far have you got? I'm in the second compartment. Is that it? Jesus. Ever heard the quote that true leaders are readers? Well, we believe this is true. Listeners often ask where we go to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the sector globally. So there are a few key publications which I encourage you to go check out. Now, if you're looking for insights on disaster management, fire protection and firefighting, for us, we go to Asia Pacific Fire Magazine. And when you're looking for the latest on the Middle East fire protection industry and fire services, it's Gulf Fire Magazine. And our quarterly check-in is with International Firefighter Magazine, reporting to municipal, industrial and fire training professionals. Now, next up, and widely accepted to be the global voice for passive and active fire protection. This is a good one. It's International Fire Protection Magazine. And finally, and perhaps the most relevant to our predominantly UK audience, I'd strongly suggest subscribing to UK Fire Magazine, reporting to the United Kingdom fire protection industry and fire services. We're really excited to announce that after a long-standing relationship and mutual respect, we've now partnered with MDM Publishing, who bring you all of these essential publications. Because in a world of change, the learners shall inherit the earth, while the learned shall find themselves perfectly suited for a world that no longer exists. Eric Hoffer said that, and I believe he was right. So keep growing, keep learning, and keep yourself in the know and at the cutting edge of what's happening globally by dropping into the notes. And as a gift from the podcast, you can actually subscribe to any of these publications for free using the link in our notes. Now back to the show.
And we never call bullshit on it. We're saying,
John's great at that, isn't he?
Let's go defensive.
I love that.
But it's also one more thing that I would say about that. When guys are telling me, either I will go down or I will start cooling when it's hot. What does it mean hot? Let's say 100 degrees in a compartment. That's, for our PPE, that's nothing. We'll be nice and cozy, no problems at all. But think about that little kid in their pajamas. 100 degrees will seriously burn them. Don't wait with the water and don't wait with staying low. Apply it. If there is smoke, apply it all the time.
Okay, so let me be the devil's advocate person that's not in the room and go, yeah, Mike, but I've read the studies. I apply water Did you know a litre of water turns into 1,000 XYZ of steam? And
Absolutely.
then I'm going to give the casualty burns, Mike. That's what I've been told. You're probably not aware of that. So this is the imaginary student. Help me combat that answer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So first of all, if you do your gas cooling correctly with the correct droplet sizes and correct water application, the gases that you cool contracts more than the steam expands. So that's where the phrase that the neutral plane should lift if you gas cooling well comes from, because the gases should contract. Again, if you vaporize your water on the surfaces, then that gas layer isn't contracting as much as it could, because your water is not as efficient as it could be.
But also that application and expansion, if you're recognizing your ventilation profile and you've got the doorway open, where do you think that sudden increase in pressure and steam is going to go? It's going to look for the path of least resistance. It's not going to come down on the floor and torch the person. It's going to go out the door and away from you.
UL has done a lot of testing on this, and perfect example, James Mendoza, who's from California, and he's at IFIW every year. He gave us a really nice analogy on this year, because he was telling us that his students in containers, they will complain that when they over apply water, it's getting hot, which is exactly the same complaints that we hear all the time. And then after the burn, they've got obviously the temperature probes and thermocouples in the containers, and then he takes them and shows them the temperature readings, at what point they applied water and how much the temperature dropped. Yes, you feel hotter for that period of time because more moisture in the air conducts the heat better through your gear. That's why you feel it. But when you look at science and numbers, the temperature has dropped. And after all, there is no way of throwing cold water in a hot smoke and that smoke getting hotter. It's just physically impossible.
Isn't there also an argument for attack boxes? And I'm saying attack or demo boxes, which are often used as attack boxes, are great for demonstrating and simulating conditions within a compartment. But as an instructor, your challenge is always condition setting. So what they tend to do is they send you in, tuck the hose reel under the door and close it down to sustain conditions. So again, when we speak about all of that, that internal feeling will feel worse because we've closed the compartment down because we want to sustain conditions. But in an actual fire, the doors would be open and that stuff wouldn't, it still would have a massive positive effect, but you wouldn't have as much of the internal feeling. But you pick up that memory, don't you? You pick up that mental scar, that training scar, and go, well, I did that and it fucking sucked. I had to get down on my knees.
Let's remember how many fires every year we go to in shipping containers. It's not that many.
No.
So
fantastic tools, but not as realistic. And equally, brick built ones are great, but once you've done 4 or 5 burns in them, they just hold so much of that heat.
Yes, very
so you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But if that's the only experience of fire behaviour training that person's had, they can. You want them to take certain lessons away, but because of the structure, the materials, and the environmental conditions, they might get fewer scars as well.
And I think it's important, to pre-brief, to debrief, to set the context. It's essential. But at the end of the day, after a couple of years, they're going to remember how they felt and what they physically did, not what you told them.
So Maya Angelou quote that is, they forget what you said, they forget what you did, but they'll always remember how you feel. And she says it in the analogy of speaking, but it's the same for any experience. You and I will forget half the stuff we said on this conversation, but we'll go, I felt listened to, or it was fun. You forget all the context, and that's it. You just remember how it made you feel. I did X, I felt Y. I don't want to do X again, because that felt crap.
And you've been to Lancashire, where Louis done a brilliant workshops, and so I have obviously burned with John before, and I didn't appreciate it until I was with him in the container. Funnily enough, because now that I've done the 2 courses in Belgium, now I'm officially certified Belgian's CFBT instructor.
Hey, congratulations, brother.
But the way they burn is very controlled, very cool, you could say, but it still creates fantastic conditions for gas cooling. There's still plenty of very thick smoke, which lights up here and there, but there's no flames across the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, which what I found, our guys will associate, I need to put water on when I see those flames. You know, and that's a big fallacy, because I want to cool before those flames happen. You know,
because when those flames are happening, what you get into actually is a fire gas ignition in the layer, which is usually is it, carbon monoxide 600 and something degrees, whatever it is. That's what's actually happening there, which means it was bloody more than hot enough before for you to be doing some effective gas cooling. If you get a fire gas ignition up there, it's really bloody hot.
Yeah, and so I do believe that when we took the model from Sweden, and actually the other day I spoken with John Taylor, who actually in 1996 brought it all over from Sweden and wrote the book Fire Burns. Smoke Burns. Fire Burns would be a bit obvious, but Smoke Burns. And I finally got to meet
John's
him.
on my list. I haven't spoken to John yet.
And so it's very important for the instructors to set the conditions for as realistic as possible. You know, that the visibility will be poor unless you want to show them those little dancing angels and all that. That's fine. And there is a learning in that. But if we're practicing gas cooling, let's make it as realistic as we can. Because, you know, otherwise they just learn the robotic thing, or open and close the branch. Yeah, fine, I've done that. And you told me it was okay, right? So next, you know, and all that stuff. And we know, working in containers, how quickly, if you've got a door open behind you, how quickly that layer comes back, you know, because obviously the convection currents takes it out, and by the time next person comes over, it's already lighting up again.
Yeah.
And that's what also I'm noticing the difference between the UK teaching and doing it abroad, is that when I was in containers in Belgium and I was playing the role of the instructor, I had my tick and I was observing teams going in. And you can, if you close your eyes and just listen to them, it's like a metronome. It's psst, psst. And you can set your watch by their pulses. You know, it's not obviously constant, but it's exactly spaced out equally, and as they progress, let's say every 2 meters, there's a pulse. And it's just something that we don't tend to do. We cool maybe at the door of entry, then at the next door, but then we go into our BA shuffle thing and we just progress through the compartment until the next door.
Is it because as well though, we've bought a lot of attack and demo boxes in a lot of the places that I go. They'll have 4 or 5 of them versus some of the H blocks and some of the more, because that's the bit where you can really start to appreciate a progressive gas cooling towards the room of origin. Whereas with an attack box, demo box, you're straight on it.
Yeah,
I'm outside in cool air and then I'm in it. So there's no progression to that point.
I found it with the first time I've done the T-cell, which is basically a T-shaped 2 containers, and you go down the leg of the T to get to the main container, which has the burn bit in it. And even more so, in that leg of the T, they've got furniture in as well. So it's not as simple as just following the wall and getting there. And I found it for the first time, they were shouting at me to cool because I was just not used to it. You know, because in the UK, I was going in, I've cooled at the door, and then we were standing up and progressing along the wall until we found another door, maybe. You know, and so it was so foreign for me to cool every couple of steps, cool, and obviously be down all the time because this is a real smoke and it's fairly hot. So I think not being able to see the fire when we're practicing tactically. We're not talking here about demo. When we're actually going to go in and find our way to the fire and put the fire out. I think it's so essential to not be able to see the fire.
Yeah.
Because the association we get all the time now, and I've seen it in incidents where guys would be sitting in front of the fire and gas cooling, you know, and it's the scar from the training. And I get a lot of responses that, oh, you know, we've got the boxes what we've got, and you know, and we can't change them. But in many countries now I've seen different kind of baffles fitted. Even if it's just a single container, we can't have anything else because of the budget. It's a single container. You can still have, I think Lancashire had that foldable
they had the
baffle
folding door, yeah.
Cover the, it's let's say 3/4 of the way up. So it's still the gases above can travel on the ceiling. But it cuts that association with there is the fire and I'm cooling here. No, if there's a fire, I'm just going to put water on it and put it out. You know,
and even if you had it come in, I think theirs went halfway. But if you had it 2/3 of the way down a standard attack box, covering 2/3 of the box, you'd also, again, if it went full ceiling height, you'd at least be able to talk about the flow path. I mean, that sheet of steel would be bloody red hot, but you'd be getting some elements, and like you say, you'd have to progress up to it to be able to do either a direct or an indirect attack and try and bounce it off something. But like you say, you don't want to get into a point where I can see a fire and I'm not applying water to it.
And I'm not allowed to apply water on it. That's the problem. We will tell the trainees off for putting out my fire. Yeah. No, I thought that was the point of it.
That's what I thought it said on the leaflet when I joined. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, then chances are you are big into your own personal development and the development of firefighters around you. So I wanted to remind you of our mobile app Drill Book. This is a free training and development resources made by firefighters for firefighters. Heading on to Drill Book, you will find incident debriefs, radio messages, knots and lines, quick reference guides, quizzes every single day. We've got useful links to the ERG, to Web Rescue, to Jessup, Euro Rescue, 10-second triage, National Operational Guidance, and not to mention our daily quizzes where you will find questions on extrication, casualty handling, breathing apparatus, fire development, water rescue, rope rescue, you name it. It is the go-to resource if you've got a spare 5 minutes on the firehouse to develop yourself and those around you. Not only that, if you're looking to get into the fire service, we've got advice on there on interview questions, interview answers. You can build your own questioning in there. And again, remember, this is built by firefighters for firefighters, so you can add your own drills in there. You can pick the drills that you find the most favorite. There is literally hundreds of training ideas, hundreds of drills in there. Remember, this app is absolutely free and it grows every single day down to the contributions of our thousands and thousands of users. It's freely available on Android, Apple, and you will find it in the links for this podcast. Remember, it's called personal development. The clue's in the name. You've got to work twice as hard on yourself as you do on the job. So always be growing, always be developing. Now let's get back to the show.
I had a girl, female firefighter, join the station a good few years ago, and she told me very, very telling phrase which I never thought about. She says, "Oh, I've spent 12, 14 weeks in training, and whatever it is for different services," and she says, "And I thought I'm gonna learn how to be a firefighter," and I said, "Yeah, that's the idea." And she says, "In those 12, 14 weeks, I have never put the fire out." Wow. And I said, yeah, that seems to be a problem. You know, we teach everything to do before you get to the fire, and then suddenly the lesson stops because we can't put the fire out.
You're like a fire nurse, which is man and woman. You know, it's like, well, I'm a fire maintainer. I get to it and babysit it, basically. And it's like, I've seen them amazing.
At the college, I think at Morton, they've got kind of L-shaped cells there as well, and that's a good solution. One more I've seen, I think it was Germany or in Poland. They had a baffle, let's say 2/3 of the way across, but then they had closer to us another baffle from the other side, so they were overlapping a bit. So you can
there's one at Morton which is a U-shaped block. That's probably my favourite because you can go in, you can travel the full U if you want to, but there's like there's 6 doors, I think, on it. That was my favourite because it's a very versatile unit. And you can set, and also the central part is a fully contained compartment in itself. So you can actually do some like anti-ventilation, and you can attack it and sit in this room and then talk about, right, well, now everything's pushed bin into this room, we're going to cool this room, ventilate this room, close back down, go again, and we can progressively work from here for a period of time. Very, very versatile. But, a lot of people moan about the college. They do a lot of things well. They do a lot of things well. And it's one of the best playgrounds. But you know what? Places like Manchester and Merseyside, and Cheshire, actually Cheshire are struggling a little bit at the minute. They've got some great setups, but Merseyside's new centre, I think from a skill set perspective, West Midlands are very, very good.
Yeah,
resource based. They're somewhat of an expert in tactical ventilation, I would personally say. A little bit limited on resource, bit. They've got one fantastic building, but Manchester are really. I would say Manchester, with respect to Dave, are not as far along. Certainly further than me, but not as far along in how they tactically train it. But from a resource perspective, Manchester's fantastic, and they've got some fantastic leadership with Dave and a few of the others. But so I think we're in such a great place. But the college has got great resources. I think they get in their own way sometimes.
I do find it more and more that with Louis in Lancashire, Louis was in Belgium 2 years ago, and he's made leaps and bounds in Lancashire. And it's so refreshing to see.
He's unapologetically passionate, isn't he?
Yeah, and now I see great things being done in Manchester, and suddenly it's all kind of very slowly but surely clicking into place, and suddenly we realize.
Just sucks you live so far away.
we're realizing that we can change things. We've changed things before.
Yeah.
So.
It's just a long, heavy lift. You've got to be very persistent. Because the problem is, I always think of like you've gone away and been in a warm bath and had a really immersive experience with some fantastic people, come through, buzz in, pop in with energy and ideas and excitement. But you hit a stone cold, ice warm, ice cold mindset, and you have to apply a lot of energy to radiate your enthusiasm, to try and sustain this fire analogy, to warm them up to a point where they can interact with your ideas. Yeah. And it's, can you hold on to that frustration for long enough to be able to get them on board? I think that's what Lewis does. He's far, far better than me at it. I'm a bit too fast and loose and ADHD mongoloid.
I was exactly the same. I was like you good few years ago, and I was diving into it with both feet. And why are we not doing this? And people very quickly will turn away and put their backs up because it's just too much. Because you're just
being offensive now. You're just telling me I'm stupid, and that's not what we're saying. But you're saying it with such conviction, and you're respectfully suggesting that we are dangerous, or we don't know what we're doing, or Mike, I've been in this job for 30 years. You start by giving me a bit of respect. Yeah, and you're like, well, And John gave a great comment. He's on his episode where he talks about, talking to a watch manager, and they went through some fire behaviour and all this sort of stuff. And the guy said something to the effect of, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I was completely naive to all of this, and now I've gone away, and you've made me question everything I've ever done, which is not the intention.
No, of course not.
And it's not to suggest that person was dangerous. You don't know what you don't know. I think like the more my relationships with people like you and everyone else that you've already referenced, the more your sphere of awareness and knowledge starts to grow, the more acutely aware you are of how oblivious you were before.
Absolutely. It's that old Dunning-Kruger.
Yes.
Before I left first time to go abroad and have a taste of the forbidden fruit, I thought I was a magnificent firefighter, because I have done everything that my service expected of me pretty well. So I thought there is nothing more to it. I'm at the pinnacle of firefighting now. And then you go away somewhere, and you meet people with loads more knowledge than you, and you're thinking, where did that come from? Do I need to know all this stuff? And then you realizing actually you were lucky. And all the assessments I've done well, at jobs I've done well, or so I thought I've done well, because within my limited sphere of understanding, I was doing everything that I was taught to do. So that means surely that I am good at it.
Yeah. It's a bit like being the best swimmer in grade 3 at the local pool, and then someone goes, hey, do you want to come to the beach and do some open water swimming? You go, I'm a great swimmer. Have you seen my 20-meter badge? I'm even faster than Janice, and everyone says she's the fastest swimmer in our school, and I'm really good. And then you go there and go, oh shit, what are these waves things? And you're like, well, it's basic hydrology, watch out for the undercurrent, Mike. And you're like, what? No, we don't do them.
Yeah. And it was that thing where you're thinking, these guys know a lot more than me. And not even the guys who are lecturing, the guys just being trained, kind of students on those different courses like me. And I'm thinking, I know nothing about this stuff, and maybe you're realizing that you were just lucky throughout those years, and not necessarily the fire went out because of something that I've done.
They all go out eventually. Eventually, it becomes a fuel-controlled fire and it goes out. And the public doesn't know what good looks like. John's way of talking about this is so good. So good. It's just...
And nobody knows what you do inside. Once you go through that threshold, nobody knows. And you could be doing an amazing job, or you could be doing nothing at all. And the fire will go out sooner or later. So it's very hard to hold anybody to account on that front.
So what else did we pick up from your latest adventure? So we've gone through some historical stuff. We've gone through some branch techniques. We've gone through some hose management. We've gone through applications of BA sets and face masks. What else was it this year's?
Let's talk. So this year IFIW was in Poland. It was very nicely organized. We were moving. There was about 35 of us, the kind of core group, and there were guys. Majority of European countries obviously were represented. There were guys from the US, Australia, China, Hong Kong, South Korea, Iran, Israel, Turkey. Basically the whole world was represented, and it's such a buzz to be surrounded with all those people. And they all nerds, they all love to chat. So you get
they all speak
stimulation.
English?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you manage with a Scottish accent, or did you struggle?
Oh, I was struggling.
He said, I'm from the UK. They said, what, really? What's this? Why are you speaking like this, Michael? I'm joking.
And so it was, it was constant stimulation.
Yeah.
Whether it was lectures or practical stuff or just chatting over a beer, which I always found the most beneficial. And I'm not saying alcohol is good for you, but it was always those sitting in the evening with a group of guys and just shooting shit.
You've created psychological safety through the day, haven't you? And then you can all talk and you're like, oh, well, good. No one's going to pretend they're an expert. We're all students with different levels of experience. And then you go, do you see that thing today? Because what we actually do is ABC. And you go, oh, really? We do 7, 8, 9. Yeah. And you're like, whoa.
Whether it's a lecture or it's some kind of presentation or practical stuff, you don't want to disrupt it.
No.
You don't want to ask too many questions. The person who's doing it got their own flow, and you want to let it run. So then those moments later on in the day are so important when you can ask all the questions you want, and the person, if they are passionate about it, they will tell you more than you need to know about what they were doing. So that's really, really nice and beneficial to have those people, have Shan Rafael, who's obviously an international expert, and sitting on the bus next to me for 5 hours, and we can chat to the heart's content.
Did you record any of it?
You what?
Did you record any of it?
No, I didn't.
You're such a selfish dick. Honestly, so selfish. Unbelievable.
I don't have technology like you do.
Oh, any moron can do it. Look, I'm doing it.
Yeah. So
Can we talk about ventilation a little bit?
I was just about to say that.
Take it away, brother.
I was obviously, in my life, came across quite a few people who know a thing or two about ventilation. One is Carol Lambert, who I'm sure he wrote his PhD about ventilation. And the other one is Michael Reich, who you also had on the podcast.
Dr. Michael Reich.
Dr. Michael Reich, no less. I think Carol is a doctor as well, so let's not shortchange him. I
think you'll be a doctor one day, you know.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
You'll put in the hard yards. I'm lazy in that respect. Academia doesn't suit me.
It's never going to happen.
You'll do it.
And Michael is one of those guys that, again, very friendly, very forthcoming, and he will tell you. If I mention, if somebody's not familiar with Michael Reich, he is the inventor of the smoke curtain, or smoke stopper, as it's called in every other country. And so we've done a lot of playing with the ventilation profiles and curtains, but also we were debunking a lot of myths. And some of the myths are very prominent around the world. Some are very prominent in the UK. And, the old, I don't know if many brigades still teach it. I believe they still do. The old PPV fan creating the cone, and you need to seal the door with that cone. That's been debunked many a time by the UL, by Michael. So, but I do still find some services teaching it.
Yeah, they do. So it used to be, if you were to fold the door down, you want to be that distance away from it. Yeah. And these were leader fans predominantly, I believe, in the UK. And they talked about creating that envelope around the door versus, I believe it's also leader, which obviously now use the Canon style fan, which creates a column of air. But no, it was you want the vent wants to be a third of the cubicle square, so whatever the size, third of the whole, third of the distance, or third of the size. Sorry, here we go.
Yes.
Of the entry. And you want to try and create that seal,
which is another fallacy.
Yeah, as though you're going to be able to see it.
I've been trained, back in the day, that you even put your hand up to the top of the door and feel if it's actually sealed properly, and unfortunately, it turns out all the air that hits the side of the door frame or the top is wasted. You're not doing any good to yourself.
I'm surprised we didn't start issuing ribbons or something to hold. It wouldn't surprise me.
We did train with them.
Yeah, well, we used to do that. We used to cut little bits of paper up and hang them from doors, and that was all about. It has to. So where's everyone else at with ventilation? So in the UK, we still think of phase 1, 2, 3.
Yes,
as some common terminology. A lot of people don't like that because, again, it can become quite prescriptive and limiting for people. But what were the different variations that you heard, saw, the good, the bad, and the ugly? And again, we're not damning anyone that uses any.
Roughly, it's everywhere. It's very similar, And we in my service where I serve, we've not been using fans for too long. So I think like London, they are only really starting with it.
You were saying that the gentlemen coming over from there were, because I think I did my TAC vent course a couple of years ago with one of the gentlemen who was brought back. No, he was just coming towards the end of his career,
right? And
he was asked to roll out phase 2, I believe, because they weren't even doing really phase 1 post. Well, everyone was doing post fire ventilation, but they weren't really using the fans. They were just naturally ventilating stuff.
Yeah, I think we only got fans on the machines maybe 5 years ago. And
are yours all still petrol driven, or have you moved to any electric ones yet? Petrol, yeah.
And so I really like fans. I'm a big fan. But from international point of view, obviously, it's a very broad spectrum. And, you know, some services like to use them for fire attack, which is, I think, called PPA. In the States, at least, it's called PPA.
Positive pressure attack, yeah.
Positive pressure attack. But majority...
Do you like it? Ooh.
I do like it.
But
I think, again, it goes back to what we spoke about before. The competence and understanding of all crew members must be high enough to implement it.
It's reliant on an assertive
Absolutely.
Speed of attack as well.
Because
if you just switch it on and you're going to take 7, 8, 9 minutes to get there, yes, you might do more damage than good because you're pushing all these gases wherever and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the effect. If it's ventilated already and you can see the effect of the fan on the fire, if there's no effect, you might be pushing them somewhere else because the door's probably closed on that compartment.
Absolutely.
But if you're seeing the reaction you're looking for, you're seeing an increase in the flow rate of gas exhaust or some flames coming out the window or whatever, then you're having a positive effect. Get in there, start making some progress.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's reliant on other factors, isn't it? It's hard to say yes.
Yeah, everybody needs to be on top of their game when you want to play with fire like that. And you know, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm sure Tyne and Weir, Lancashire, they've had great successes with stage 3. You know, so it's definitely a good tactics. Whether that's for everybody, I don't know. But from what I'm seeing across the world, majority of people do use it post fire control. However, when I say that, I don't mean for the longest time we've used it for like when the fire is out. You know, it's out.
Yeah, sequential ventilation.
Basically, just to clear some smoke, residual smoke from the place. But it seems like majority of the world uses them immediately on fire control. Even if the fire is not totally out yet, there is still a lot of damping down to do and all that. The fan goes on. Because the quicker you can clear that space of smoke, the quicker you can start your search. And then the quicker potentially you can find the victims, the quicker the temperature will go down, the quicker the hot toxic gases will be expelled from the building.
Yeah, there's a contamination argument here as well.
Absolutely, for firefighters and casualties. And UL's done a lot of studies. Keith Stakes from UL was also at IFIW. Great guy. So yeah, fire control. And UL done a lot of studies about... Sorry, I'm going to write something down because I don't want to forget it.
Go on. I've just made a few notes. So whilst you're doing that, just to signpost for people, Dr. Michael Wright, we've spoken about him already, creator of the smoke curtain, was episode 243. So if people want to go back and hear an in-depth how he came up with it, the relationship with his wife, and his wife creation and the common sense analogy of it.
Mrs. Reich's smoke curtain.
Mrs. Reich's smoke curtain, very intelligent man. And again, we're not promoting his product because he didn't actually make millions of pounds from it or anything like that. He gave it off to somebody else, and the proliferation of what is the smoke curtain, which is how it was branded and sold through a company. And I've also noted down people that we've spoke about before that I need to circle back to. We've got James Mendoza, John Taylor, and Keith Stakes. Really knowledgeable people. There's just so many of them. Paul Grimwood has promised January.
Yes.
He's got a lot of stuff he's working on, but like the problem is every post he puts out on LinkedIn, I'm like, dude, that's an episode in itself.
Yeah,
Can't we just do 15 minutes?
You know what?
You're so knowledgeable, but he's also stuck in a mindset, not stuck. Everything I say for Paul is with respect, but like,
of course,
he does so much great written work.
Yes. And
that is great for a certain generation and a certain learning style. And I'm not trying to fly a neurodiversity flag, but I'm just like,
absolutely.
Don't even need to do it with me, dude. Just do it yourself. Just switch something on and record it.
Yeah.
Just don't be anything with us. But incredible man.
But very quickly circling back to the difference or chasm between training and operations. I remember Paul Grimwood said to me many years ago now, when I thought about going into training, he told me, remember that don't spend too long in training, because after a while you'll start believing that the way you teach people to fight fires is actually how they fight it, and that's the demise of it all, you know.
And also, I think you get the most reward. So I've just moved out of training, did 2 years in there. And you get such a reward coming out and being able to talk about it experientially.
Yeah.
You know, turning up at the job and just talk all the way up to it. First impressions, you know, what is the ventilation profile of this? What are we expecting to happen? Is it fuel control, ventilation controlled? What am I expecting to happen if we do ABC? And whilst it's not as proliferated, because it's in a crew of 8 or 12 or even 4, depending on what station you're on, you get to see the lights switch on.
Absolutely.
I get a lot of personal fulfillment. But if we did that more, like Paul said to you, if a lot of people went in for a year, 2 years and came back out with their qualifications and blah, 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 I appreciate the financial challenge for services. Yes. But then you could get them back in as part-time instructors and all this jazz, harder for standardization, whatever, I get it. Yeah. But sharing that knowledge.
There is another point to that, whether it's Australia or Belgium, that all the instructors that teach in the schools or the training centers are also operational. And I think that's what's missing for us. You know, if
there is a tipping point that once you've got enough, it's then sustainable because you've got enough pool of instructors to fill all of your days. I think because we are limited by perhaps the quality of the courses and the availability of the courses and the cost of them. We just train 6, 7, 10, 12, whatever size your service is, people, and they become the experts.
Yeah.
And then they're never out on the trucks though.
In Sydney, in Australia, they run it in the way that instructors are also allowed to take overtime on stations if they're on the days off.
Yeah, we do that.
So, and that's...
We have 1 day a month. We can take overtime on stations, but we also do 1 day a month. You can do whatever you like.
Right.
Whatever you like is, if you're working on a project in the service, or if you want to go work on a station for a day as an additional member of the crew, you go do that. Yeah. And a lot of people do that. And I think that's really good. Yeah, 1 day a month, maybe not enough. But I think it's
you need that grounding from time to time to see what you are teaching. Does it actually have impact in real life, first of all? And can it actually be applied in real life? You know, what works...
Is it even making it through?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it making through the filter?
So, anyway, let's go back to ventilation, because we're jumping about.
I dragged you down a rabbit hole.
No. I love it. Michael Reich and the curtain. What you mentioned, another thing, and it's been propagated in many services, the inlet-outlet sizes.
Yes.
They are completely opposite, whether we're talking the natural ventilation or we're talking forced ventilation, i.e. a fan. If it's a natural ventilation, we're just opening windows and hoping the wind to do the job, then you want to have a smaller outlet than an inlet, to create slightly higher internal pressure to move that air out. Because obviously the air moves from area of higher pressure to area of lower pressure. So you want to have the lower pressure outside.
I also think that helps with your initial attack as well. One of my first instructors gave me a great thing, and he was like, wind on your back, good to attack.
Absolutely.
Wind on your front, don't be a silly sausage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, that's a great one to remember, because just because you can see it in front of you, can we come in from the other side of the building? Can we take 3 or 4 minutes, recommit to the back before we get all of our hoses out or wherever it might be? And that's especially relevant in high-rise tactics and stuff like that as well. And again, you'll be limited by the internal setup, layout of the floor when you get to it. But yeah, those elements of the natural ventilation and the environment and its effect on it.
And then, when we go into the forced ventilation, and there is plenty of research from the UL, from Stefan Svensson's book. It's called Fire Ventilation, another great book, and it's available for free as well. In English version.
I'm going to have to go and find all these links to put in the bloody thing. You're giving me a right list.
I can send them to you.
Well, if you want to do the links effort for me, I know I've got them somewhere, but I have to compile it for each one. Sorry. Yeah, Stefan
Svensson, Fire Ventilation, great book, both in English and in Swedish. I think he might be right in the updated edition now, but I might be wrong. And so the outlet has to be bigger than an inlet. You create at IFIW last year in Spain, we've done a little experiment. We've set up a fan at the front door, and it was basically a big classroom. There wasn't much. It wasn't a house, but it was a big classroom with a couple of little rooms off it, and windows at the backside. We stuck the fan and put the curtain up, but the curtain was purely there to indicate the flow. That it was our indication of where the air is going. And we cranked up the fan and opened one window at the back of the classroom. And to everybody's amazement, the curtain wasn't blowing in, it was blowing out the way. So obviously the outlet, being smaller than the inlet, couldn't contain all that air that was rammed in there. So the air had to come out through the inlet. So if that was a fire situation, you would have all the smoke coming out through the inlet, which is not the best.
You'd still have a bidirectional flow path because you haven't...
Absolutely.
The dynamics of the ventilation profile of that compartment, you've not been able to go out in overpressure.
And even when we opened 2 windows, the curtain was still flowing outwards. Only when we started going 3, 4, 5 windows, then the curtain started blowing in the way. And then that majority, at least, of air that you're pumping in is coming out somewhere else, not through the inlet. And that was a great visualization of that rule, and
easy for people to try on their own stations as well.
Absolutely. And
different size rooms, different profiles.
In Stefan Svensson's book, there is a graph that shows that correlation. Because obviously Stefan will use some formulas, but I'm useless at that. So, and it shows that when you go 2-to-1, so double the size of the outlet to the inlet, you're at around 90% efficiency. And it still then goes up very slowly up to 5-to-1, so outlet 5 times bigger than the inlet, and then it drops off. So, and UL found exactly the same thing when they've done their study. I can't remember what it's called now, but they've done the study on PPA, and they've used like so many different fans, and they set alight 25 houses or whatever it was, and they were measuring. And I think they've established that in a single story property, 5-to-1 was the best they could achieve, and in the 2 stories, 4-to-1 was the most effective. So again, if we think of a door of entry, as 2 meter high, 1 meter wide, so that's our 2 meter square inlet. If we think about average window in the UK, let's say it's meter by meter, even if you can open it fully.
Yeah.
So that's your 1 meter square outlet. So if your inlet is going to be 2 square meters and you want to achieve 4-to-1, you'd need to have 8 windows open, which is...
I'd argue even more than that, like you say, because, and again, we won't try and attempt the maths, but it's probably half a metre squared because most of them are...
Absolutely. I'm just...
Yeah, I know.
The ease of maths. Because
I don't want people hanging on to that excuse and going, well, that's not true, is it? Because I can't open it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But it'd be even more. Yeah, it might be 16.
Absolutely. However, so there is no need to do in 1 room at the time, because probably in a domestic property there is not even 8 windows in the whole place.
No.
So just open everything up.
Yeah.
However, the higher up that scale you go, the more you will be influenced by the wind, and the higher up those, if you go 4-to-1, 5-to-1, then the difference of pressure between outside and inside will be very little. So even the slowest wind will impact or can reverse your flow. So theoretically, these are the best ratios. However, in real life, I think if you stick with your 2-to-1, double the inlet, you're already operating at about 90% efficiency. So and you still got a little bit of margin to counter a little wind.
And again, there's lots of marginal gains with 2 fans,
Absolutely.
2 leader cannon fans
then,
on a slight angle pointing towards the stairs.
Michael was explaining this, and I'll probably make a hash.
There's a million factors, isn't there?
And he says that even 2 fans in a row will not double your efficiency.
No.
It's extra, I think 30%, he said. But the
Because a second one will also create some turbulence.
Absolutely.
Which will arguably, like you say, reduce it.
And
it doesn't mean reduce it less than 100%, but you're only getting 130, 140.
But the simple solution to that, because it's very hard to create so many openings as well, if you really want to go for those higher ratios. So what is the ready solution that we do have? If you have your front door 2 meters square, hang the curtain in it and fold it back on itself. You're already taking away half the door. So then your door becomes 1 meter square. So then maybe all you need is the back door open, and that's already 2-to-1. And you're already in the ballpark of being pretty efficient. Or open a couple of windows, and you're at 90%. So things like that, that we, for many years, were scared of opening too many windows because that will lower the pressure in the compartment, and then it will not work. Because we associated the pressure of the outlet, the smoke coming out at velocity, as must be better than if it's coming out slowly. But what we want is the flow. We don't need pressure. We don't need that air to come out super fast. We just want the difference in in pressures, for that air to move out of the property. And
because it is all physics, and if people perhaps apply this, because sometimes we're certainly more familiar with water from a visual perspective, multiple lines, twinning hydrants, arguably no greater pressure, increase in flow.
Exactly that.
Because of that, reduction in frictional loss and environmental factors that affect it.
So it's if you want to really dive into it, it becomes very complicated.
Yes.
But the simplest of things, if you put the fan in, make sure the outlet's bigger than the inlet. That's all we need. And
manipulate the inlet, make it smaller.
Yeah. And don't worry if the placement of the fan. You can put it as close as you want, but then you're blocking your door. Because obviously the fan also works that it entrains the air from the outside. Like your branch. Oh, by the way, in the UL research, they found that hydraulic ventilation, i.e. sticking a branch out of the window, or I think they said 6 feet out of the window, 30-degree cone or whatever it was, and I don't want to misquote it, but it was much more efficient than the fan. So,
well, you're doing it at source, aren't you?
Yeah. And it was like how much air it moved. Obviously, they calculated it, and it was multiple of what the fan was capable of.
Oh, definitely.
So it's I wouldn't discourage it. What I would say is, if you're the guy in the room of the fire and you've put it out, and it's out, and your other guy with a tick is kind of still monitoring if there is any hot spots, stick that branch out of the window. You cannot do wrong with that. And
again, that helps because there's nothing to stop you doing these in conjunction.
No, absolutely.
That's simultaneous, straight into phase 2, fan on at the door, smoke curtain halfway down, crews on the fire already, they begin hydraulic ventilation. People have a big thing about an external covering jet on the ventilator in case of a fire gas ignition, or like it's going to spontaneously set fire to the floor above it or the bloody eaves. That ain't going to happen quick.
If you're doing phase 3,
you should have someone on the fan and you've got someone on the fire so they can quickly stop their actions if we do panic. Not that we should.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely. And so it's all simple. It's all simple if you don't want to dive too much into it, but it's simple enough. And I'm not saying we need simple concepts for firefighters, because some of them are.
I would say that
a lot smarter than I am, but
they're all very smart. But we have the growing needs of the public, of the community, of the people that we serve. We're becoming very diverse in our skill set. I think this is the hidden metric when people go, mate, we used to learn so much more about fire behaviour in construction. Yeah, but you never did rope rescue, water rescue, animal rescue. You didn't do anything else. You didn't barely even do any kind of extrication. So we are the jack of all trades now, and we need to have that very wide skill set. So simplicity is just people call it lazy, but lazy is just smart efficiency. Is laziness. I want to have simplistic things. So when I am tired, and when I've been on 7 calls or 28, like you said the other day, it needs to be we need to reduce the cognitive load of being able to deploy these tactics and focus, like you said, on the muscle memory. Like when John was speaking, he said, if you only had an hour to work with people, some people said, oh, I'd do a BA set, I'd do a fire behavior demo. And he's like, I'd just do hose.
Yeah.
I'd just do hose
and
because I'm just going to put the thing on your face and breathe. I'm not going to waste time on that. Muscle memory.
Yeah. And I said that to my guys sometimes, that I want you to know, let's say putting the sets on, because now we don't carry sets in the back of the machine, we carry them in the lockers. And so that already extended our time to get ready. But I am a big believer in, if you're really good at it, you can put that set on, not necessarily, but kind of as if with your eyes closed. You can release that brain capacity for what I'm telling you. I want you to do those mechanical things automatically. And then you can listen to me. Or you can look at the building, how many windows there are, what floor am I going to? Probably that's a frosted window, so that's a toilet. All those little things, I want you to be able to process as you're doing that thing. But it's only possible if you're not faffing, or this strap is not going here,
You've got to push it into the subconscious.
Yeah.
I try and give an example of teaching kids how to tie the shoelaces. And I'm like, right, really slow down, Mike, and explain to me how you're tying your shoelaces, and do it at a pace where I can follow you. You'd really struggle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're trying to deconstruct something that you've pushed into your subconscious muscle memory. You aren't really applying much cognitive load to that. Driving's always an easy example. Teaching someone to drive, they're like, so wait a minute, you want me to clutch, gear, mirror, 10 and 2, and what else? Oh, Jesus Christ, I take the handbrake off, or don't roll backwards, and all this sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, it's just driving.
Yeah.
These 7 steps has become driving. And now I'm also checking my phone, listening to the radio, talking to my daughter in the passenger seat, because I've freed up that cognitive load to deal with other things. And that's all just, I remember stood on an on-call station in the compressor room just for hours, set on, set off, set on, set off. Yeah. And sometimes, like you say, you're giving your brief and they go, right, let's get you under air now. 5 minutes later, they're at the door. Yeah. Starting to do the open, close pantomime dance. And you're like, whoa, Jesus, getting painful now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always kind of compare it to, or not compare, but I speak about historically, what have we done historically to be quicker, to save ourselves times? Why do we use poles in the fire stations and not stairs? How much time really does that save us? Seconds. Why do we keep our leggings on top of our boots? Again, seconds. Why do we
marginal gains?
Why do we use blue lights? Why do we skip red lights? And all those things. We used to get dressed in the machines. I'm not saying that was right, but it was all to save those seconds, which will save us minutes. And sometimes I feel now that we arrive at incident and massive handbrake is being pulled. And all those little marginal gains are immediately lost because I need this sort of information and this, and I need to speak to this guy and that guy, and he needs to do his checks, and then, I need to do my 360, which is the right thing to do anyway, but, I need, before I am allowed to commit, I should know all of this stuff, which is impossible to know. And probably by the
time it's hitting a moving target as well.
Yeah, exactly. By the time I gather that information, it's probably invalid already. And if I will gather information or how long it's been burning, what does that tell me? Will my tactics of deploying guys differ if it's been burning for 5 minutes or 15 minutes? I'm still going to rely on what I can see. If there are flames pumping off my door of entry, probably I'm going to look for something else. If there is a wispy smoke, I don't care if it's been burning for half an hour. They going in. And I think we need to maybe take a step back and think, are we not... We've taken as we started this episode with, we've taken the procedure to be an art as opposed to the action. And what John argues a lot, if you're going to take extra 5 minutes getting ready to go into that fire, you might as well not go in because it's too late. Now it's dangerous. Because of that delay, you've made it dangerous. It's now burning out of control. It's coming out of the windows. I don't want you anywhere near it. But 5 minutes ago, you could have come in and used the hose reel if you really wanted to.
Yeah, held it to that room of origin. It's the Dave Brailsford marginal gains. We used to use it in the company I worked for before I joined the fire service. We did a lot of Six Sigma and Kaizen, and we used the Formula One pit stop analogy for all of those efficiencies and right tool in the right place to do the thing as quickly as possible, your own personal admin, and so much of that is within your sphere of control. Absolutely. John, again, is John McDonald the most quoted person on this episode today? Talks about the spread.
Absolutely.
The spread, great analogy. The best crew in your service or the worst crew, how long would X take? And then the awkward question of where do you think you are on the spread? Where am I? Am I the timid firefighter?
Yeah.
Am I the person hemorrhaging time and,
in the name
almost
of
betraying
safety,
all of these marginal gains we've done in the past?
Yeah, in the name of safety, which maybe ironically make the situation more unsafe because of my delay.
No one ever got sacked for imposing more safety.
No, absolutely not. And taking their time. It's like the incident command assessments. Nobody cares if you put the fire out, as long as you've put everything in place.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we turn up and it's middle of the night and there's nobody to speak to, I still have the authority to send the guys in without any information. Maybe 360, and that's all. And probably in the big cities when there are just rows of houses or tenements, I can't do my 360 anyway. I totally understand the need for it and the reasoning behind it, but I don't know if we went over a crest a little bit and now we work in to our detriment.
Yes, it will increase your situational awareness, but at some point, and we'll all have a different risk appetite, at which point, 30, 40, 50, 60% situational awareness, where's your action trigger?
Yeah.
When does it tip to you and you go, right, I'm going to do this now. I'm going to start taking some action. Because that will increase my situational awareness, because I'm still guessing at what it's like in there anyway.
If I'm reviewing my situation constantly, then at any point, even after sending them in, I can say, oh no, something has changed, come out. It's not that first decision was wrong. I've got additional information now that makes me think maybe let's use another tactics. But we are expected that decision to go in or not, to go offensive or defensive, is set in stone. Once you've made your DRA and you've made a decision, that's it. You need to stand by it. But at the same, every model for decision making does include that loop to the very beginning to reanalyze it and reassess. So
Dan Stevens was great recently. He talked a lot about the joint decision making models and things like that. Again, very high risk appetite potentially. Some people say he's a bit too assertive, militaristic, whatever. Yeah. There's a big spectrum of people, but you don't want to be the overly safe, because the safest firefighters are back at the fire station in bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're never going to send them in, and they will hemorrhage experiential learning and arguably become more risky the day that they do have to go in, because that day will come.
Those are the ones that never make any mistakes either.
No, and they'll never get sacked, and people go, oh, they were a good firefighter. Yeah. Were they? I don't know. They did 20 years, 1 year's experience 20 times. But I want to be respectful of our time, because I know regular feedback you give from me sometimes is like, keep it short, keep it snappy, and then you and I have talked for 2 hours. But this is an absolute buffet of experiential learning that you've presented in front of us from all of your travels.
One more thing that I've wrote down when we were talking, and because I thought it's quite pertinent, especially the UK service in general, because I've noticed it in quite a few services now, that casualty evacuation. And I'll bounce back to UL study and what Keith Stakes was telling us about it all. And we'll put a links to UL Fire Safety Research Institution, or Institute, I think it is, FSRI. And because you can access all their research and all their e-learning stuff there. And they are really, really brilliant resource. Excuse me. The UL research has proven beyond any doubt. They have, again, set fire to many properties and put millions of sensors, for temperature sensors, heat flux, gas concentration, even pig's skin to monitor burn patterns and depth of burns. And they were basically assessing different tactics of fire attack and casualty survivability. And one of the biggest factors for survivability of victims was their position within the room. Not necessarily in the fire room, but anywhere within the property. The higher up they were, the chances of fatality were increasing exponentially. Person on the floor neighboring the room of fire was much more likely to survive than person very distant from the fire, but maybe on the top of bunk bed. So going from that, we all know that the lowest temperature in any fire is right above the floor. James Braidwood told us 200 years ago that he told his firefighters to crawl along the floor and take that breath right from above the floorboards, because that's where it is. Coolest and the highest oxygen concentration. So lowest temperature, highest oxygen concentration that's where it is. And usually we'll find people on the floor. But then a lot of our teaching is how to evacuate the casualty. We lift them up. We lift them up to maybe chest level, their head to be at our chest level. That difference in temperature between my chest level and my feet could be 200 degrees. That's every breath they draw is precious, and everyone could be their final one. So again, we're going back to science-backed procedures, to our procedures being based on experiments and facts. And I think we can agree that this is not the best way to do it. Again, I don't know whether it was designed at the same time as BA Shuffle, and basically we had to lift them like that to allow us to still maintain our personal protection. But now we know more. Now we can reassess this, and we need to admit that the best place for that person is on the floor. And then how we go about it, whether we drag them, whether we use some straps, whether we use...
That's what I was about to say. This is my second argument for the casualty handling straps, because they were brought in from a manual handling argument.
Okay.
But the increased survivability for the casualty is to keep them low.
Absolutely.
Because if you desperately say that you want to stand up, because I'm a lot faster when I'm standing up, Pete, and I can move a lot quicker with it, okay, fine. Still keep the casualty down.
Yeah.
This should be... Have I got my hose reel? Yes. Have I got my casualty handling strap?
Yeah.
If I'm going in there and this person's reported, yes, fire is the priority, but at some point I'm going to be bringing somebody out. Just because I've put the fire out, we always say it in community visits, fire doesn't kill people, smoke does.
Yeah.
It's always the smoke.
Absolutely.
This person had third-degree burns. But the toxicology or the coroner's report, smoke inhalation.
Yeah.
All the time. It's always smoke inhalation.
And there is no doubt about it that the best place for them is on the floor. And I would never say that we are killing them by lifting them, but there is definitely an increase in their chances of injury by doing that. So I do think we need to look at it. And whether it's straps, I don't know if the straps is the best answer, or just dragging some techniques. There is hundreds of them, because every service in the world uses something. And we've got the pool to look and say, oh, we like this, we don't like this, it's easy stuff. Somebody's already done it. We don't have to be pioneers in this stuff.
And equally for me, long before the organisation that I work for bought straps, we used to cut the seat belts off RTC vehicles, have them in your pocket.
Yeah.
Always been doing it. Always been doing
Yeah.
it. It's a useful thing for many things because it's a very strong piece of webbing as well. But
I do think that you can go maybe too far the other way. And I've seen different guys in different countries doing these very intricate things with straps and creating like a harness and this and that.
Yeah, when they hang it off the sets, I'm a bit worried because I think you're going to damage the set.
It's all sorts of different, and they're very intricate and they're very impressive.
Yeah. Very good for Instagram.
Absolutely. But how long are you spend? Can you do it? First of all, can you do it without zero visibility? When the person is larger, maybe big clothes on, whatever, and are you not just wasting time here? But you could just do a simple loop around the legs or arms or whatever, under the shoulder, and just drag them out,
Yeah.
Because once you find that casualty, that's become your needle in a haystack. It doesn't happen every day, and it will maybe not happen to you throughout your career. But if you do have them, you grab them and you get them out. Then even the fire becomes a second priority,
Yeah.
As
bringing somebody out is incredible. Bringing somebody out and then them, gaining consciousness again.
Living to
or the ambulance staff working for 10 minutes and going, yeah, okay, we've got a pulse or whatever, we've got them back, we're on the way. Saying you found someone and then 4 or 5 minutes later, I'm still waiting for you to emerge at that entry point. Is really not ideal. Everyone's still going to cheer, and the funeral might be a bit nicer because the body's a bit less ruined. But let's not, stop at good when the aspiration could be great.
Absolutely, and and again, I would never say rescue is more important than putting fire out, because you put the fire out and everything gets better, and you can vent, and then you can search much easier and quicker. But as John used to say, the firefighting team never go past the casualty, the search and rescue team never go past the fire. And I think these are the two things that's all you need to know when you go in searching or going into the domestic property. And I think we need to maybe as a group of services or nationwide, I don't know if any services are employing or you saying that you've got straps, and maybe we need to look at that.
Not all.
Because that's definitely something that would...
I also just think, echoing back to the manual handling perspective, with the growing waistline of the UK human being and the global human being, training with 50 kilo dummies and all that sort of jazz, I think that perpetuates this misbelief that you are going to pick this person up at chest height and walk out with them. No, you're not.
It's never going to happen.
Okay, you're a lot lighter and fitter than me, but I'm 18 stone. Yeah, and I'm still a fit person. And you are not. I would love for you to bring the casualty out. I'll be more annoyed if you can't bring me out. I'll be really upset, and so will my family. So training with a 50 kilo dummy is just silly, I think. That's less than 10, 9 stone. Kids aren't getting stuck in these fires.
We do have to have some kind of, what I think the trainees should have a success. So during their revolution, they should achieve what they set out to achieve, because that builds on that. But as we progress, maybe from trainees to competent firefighters to experienced firefighters, we definitely at some point need to introduce or break that association that you can do that with a person. I recently had an incident when the lady had fallen, and she's already been on the floor all night, and then we came in the morning, and she was 17 stone. So she wasn't morbidly obese, but she was definitely a larger
She's lighter than me.
And there was 3 of us, and we told her, we're just going to sit you up on a chair. So not even lift you away. We're just going to lift you up and slide a chair under your bum. And she says, I don't know if you'll be able to do it. And I'm like, there's 3 of us. Of course we will be able to do it. And did we?
It's bloody hard.
Eventually we've done it.
And she's conscious and helping.
Trying to help us out a little bit. Yeah. And you're only lifting her slightly to get the chair under her. So to even kid ourselves on that we could lift her clean off the ground and carry it for any distance it's just it's just for the birds.
So when people go, yeah, we found an adult and baby, I'll take them both. You handle the reel. I'm like, please stop. Please stop.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Yeah.
This is, what are we doing?
Yeah,
but it's our fault.
I've got the baby on my shoulder and then the adult on the
They
other
need the
shoulder.
win. They need that positive
Absolutely.
loop of reward. But then we've got to start progressing. And this isn't Pete arguing for, let's all be Firefighter Challenge heroes and we also get massive and strong.
We will be in a couple of weeks, so that's fine.
Mate, well, I just want to go have fun and not hurt myself, not injure myself, put on a great event for everybody. Wow. But equally that stuff, it shouldn't look elitist. It should just be a positive encouragement
Absolutely.
for people to have a long, healthy career. Mm-hmm. They haven't got to be a firefighting savage that wants to be on cover. Well, yeah, but I'm a moron, and I used to take a lot of drugs. So I'm too far that end of the spectrum and I'm too romantic about the thing. So we need to dilute that, but not throw the baby out with the bathwater and go, oh, well, that's not necessary. No, you're right. That bit there, right at that end of the spectrum isn't. But you're going all the way at the other end and giving people 50-kilo casualties and low entry selection tests.
You've mentioned it many a time now, and I agree. If something's easy to achieve, it's not worth achieving. Nobody
participation medals.
If getting into Navy SEALs was easy, no high achiever will want to go there.
No, so, they would they wouldn't say only 1% need not apply because everyone can do it. No, 99.9% need not apply because it's difficult and the sense of reward you get from doing it.
That's exactly
firefighting. When someone says anyone can be a firefighter, no, they can't. They can't.
Yeah.
I am a really enthusiastic opera singer, but my vocal range is just not there, unfortunately, and I can blame my mum and dad for my genetic failures.
When I spoke with Karel, I think in Brussels, I think they drop off about 10% of trainees through the.
He was great,
and if
they also have a lot of applicants though.
Yes, but if we consider ourselves. 100% of people we employ at interview then make it to be a firefighter, then surely what we're saying, our recruitment team is the best in the world. Because they must be so good at selecting those people, because, probably companies like Apple's and Amazon will be jealous of that, because nobody's got that record. But the fire service does. So are we that good at recruiting?
So how are you doing it?
Are we that good at recruiting? Or are we just...
Are we manipulating it and nursing some people through? And I'm not for 1 second saying these are rubbish people that are making it onto the trucks. They may have been capable of achieving the standard, but maybe we shortened their course so much or whatever, and we just nursed them through.
I think that, if we make concessions, and I don't mean concessions, but even if they scrape through the process, they are right at the beginning of it. What are they going to be like at 30 years' time? Yeah. Obviously, that's going to dip. And or the funny situation when we were, because IFIW was in Poland, and we went to their fire university, the training school, and they were showing us what it takes to be a firefighter in Poland, the selection tests. So there is you need to do pull-ups, and there is a certain amount. That is a minimum. Below that, you're going home. But also, there is to get maximum number of points, there is a set. And it's 27 pull-ups.
Brazil do the same.
And
so when we had Martin on, when I was out in Saudi, I interviewed him. And he said the same. He was like, 15 is the minimum for men and women, but you get points for how many you can do. And I was like, 15 pull-ups?
Yeah.
I said, I would think I would struggle to do 15 pull-ups. And he's like, no, you wouldn't. I said, no, seriously, I think and he's older than me. Yeah. And I was like, well, how many can you do? And he actually proved it later on that day on a tree branch. He could do 32. Dead hang, full extension. I was like, great. I hate you.
I thought I'm a champion because I can maybe do 14, 15. And then 27? It's just inhumane.
And I get it. People say, well, that's not necessary, Mike. Why? When have you ever done a pull-up in the job? Okay, but pick your metric.
Yeah.
Just make it challenging and reward people for overperforming.
They do a bleep test as well. And their to get top scores is 12-0 for bleep test. So again, it's significantly higher. And you can say, oh, when do we run shuttle runs in the fire brigade? But it just shows your general fitness. Not necessarily the.
You could do lots of manipulations like that with the fireground fitness test.
Mm-hmm.
You could extend some manipulations of that, and I appreciate there's some skill elements to that which may disadvantage people at the infancy of their career in terms of hose rolling. But lifting and moving, a lot of firefighting is lifting and moving.
Absolutely.
Put this bag on your shoulder, go up that set of stairs, come back down, pick something else, go back up. How many times can you do it in 3 minutes, 6 minutes, whatever it might be? And then you could reward those O performers, because we do reward those things. You don't get distinction criteria in a fitness test, but you do in your endpoint assessments.
True.
If you can demonstrate a greater level of understanding, knowledge, and skill sets, then we'll reward you for it.
Others.
Yeah.
You've worked harder, you've studied harder.
And we should recognise and reward that.
Absolutely.
We should encourage it.
It's still one of the fundamentals of our service. Being fit is like guys in Paris, for example. They are like the elite, and they will do the pull-ups every day to prove that they fit for duty.
Impressive sausages they are.
But again, let's not go too far.
There's a spectrum. Right, I want to be respectful of your time and our time and the listeners' time, because we've capped 2 hours now, I think. But it's good. It's an absolute buffet of knowledge. Let's whistle-stop tour back through some of the links that we think we're going to provide, and I will lean heavily on Michael's knowledge and links for this. So I've got written down, some James Mendoza stuff. John Taylor has his own website. We're talking about book, Smoke Burns there. Keith Stakes, probably won't provide a link for that. Stefan Svensson, CFBTE website will be in there. The UL you're going to provide us with. What else do we need?
So we'll get a UL FSRI. That's the good stuff. We'll get Stefan Svensson's book, link for that. We'll get Stefan Sarkvist's book link for that. I do have a PDF of John Taylor's book, Smoke Burns. I'll maybe be able to dig that up.
We'll put that for free. So we'll create. There's a link, even if you haven't got it.
I'm sure I've got it for free from somewhere. So I found it.
Yeah. No, it is available for free because we've got it. But we can put that as a free downloadable link.
If I can find it, because I don't like reading PDFs, so I always download a PDF and pay somebody to print it as a book for me. So I have all these books as books.
Hey, all of these PDFs I plan on doing as little reads anyway.
Right.
And just providing them for free.
You must have too much time on your hand.
I'm not, because we don't do any. Well, we do some of them. So when we do them, that's where we do the debriefs. Yeah. We pull together 5 or 6 different PDFs, historical references, websites, FBUs, incident reports that have been sent to us, and try and amalgamate all of them and do them as a read. Yeah. And I always say to people, I'm not a knowledgeable person. This is me reading someone else's stuff that I've had someone more intelligent than me, Mike, Stefan, a couple of friends from London have double checked it and to try and get rid of some inaccuracies. But yeah, I want to try and get a load of those transitioned into just audio time capsules. And they tend to be shorter as well. If it's a read, it's 30, 40 minutes. But the more I realise this is an inexhaustible role, and it's a privilege to do it. And a lot of this, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants from people like you and many others.
By the way, next IFIW is in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Good shout. And so just give people when these typically are ran, at what point during the year. And some of it people might be able to pay to go, and some of it is invitation only.
Mid-June, or third week of June, I think, is the plan to have another IFIW. Again, it all depends. Organisers decide a lot. Whoever's organising in that year decides who's going to come, who's going to be invited, who's going to speak, and so on. And what we're going to do. Because, some of them are more geared towards lectures, some of them are more practical, some of them is just going to local fire stations, seeing what they do, or Jason Coy, who will be organising next year's one, promised us a visit to the fire engine manufacturer in the States, because apparently it's somewhere in that area, which would be awesome. And yeah, so it's all in the pipeline.
I might try and get Jason on in February or something.
You were mentioned actually in this year's thing.
God, they must have been bored.
Yeah, I think John mentioned you, that your medium as a podcast have exposed him to so many people, and especially the recordings from Lancashire. Because, in Lancashire there was, 100 people there, but thanks to the recordings that you've done, and the guy from Lancashire had John
Lewis
mic'd up.
Yeah. Mo, sorry. Yeah. I think it was Mo, the guy that did the hard work.
That produced a brilliant stuff. And again, as you say, that time capsule that we can now draw
40,000 people that's reached.
Is it? And that's it. That's the answer. Oh, and another funny thing at IFIW, because I was wearing the hoodie with a podcast logo, which you kindly provided for me, and Israeli guys were like, "Oh, we love that podcast," and I was like, "Yes, yes."
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah, but again, I always say to people, it's just the guests. It's all off the back of the guests. There's lots of people that could do this far better than me. I'm somewhere in between, stupid enough, naive enough, and willing enough to listen. But I want more people to do it. More people should do it. More people should start their own. It's the thing I wish existed when I joined.
Absolutely.
It's that thing about like the best time to plant a tree was 50 years ago. Second best time is now. I wish I'd have met you 10 years ago, but I met you a few years ago.
I went abroad to look for knowledge and to look for inspiration and motivation and support, purely because I couldn't find it in the UK. And it was a sad state of affairs, and I was very sad about it. But at the same time, now that I've been in this game for a while, and I'm starting to meet people like Louis, like the guys from London, the guys from Manchester, I'm realizing, no, they are here. They are just very well hidden, or they just keep to certain little bubbles.
Some are hidden, some are trapped, and some are just oblivious, not because they're stupid, but they're just, if you're in a massive service like London, or massive like Lancashire and Manchester are both very big organisations, the edge of your fire service world can still seem quite big, even if it's only in one service.
Absolutely. And these guys are top class, and they're hungry for knowledge, they're hungry for improvements, basically everything I want, and they are there. We just need to find them.
We're connecting the dots.
It's like finding you, and because you maybe don't give yourself enough credit, because that self-defecating thing, or I'm too stupid and all that. But
it helps keep me humble.
Yeah, but at the same time,
I never want to be that person.
Remember,
we're all students, different levels of experience.
And I said that to Louis as well, that I have approached you many years ago to start doing episodes of the podcast with like subject matter experts on fire behaviour, and you told me at the time, find them for me and I'll speak to them. And that's how it all started, and that's how I got John and Michael Reich and Stephen Svensson and all those people. And through that, then Louis hears about John, and he, 2 years later, he brings him over, and Carol, and so it's all.
You never know where this stuff goes.
And
it's easy to connect the dots looking backwards, and someone thinks, "Oh, this was always planned."
No. What were the chances? Yeah, me approaching you so many years before to record something, and suddenly we've got guys from abroad coming here and there, and as a result of that. That's the brilliant.
Well, I'll share something with you now, because this won't come out for maybe a month or so. There's a new event happening next year in the UK. So the Emergency Services Show. Yeah. If I asked you, what do you go there for? What would you say? What do you go to the Emergency Services Show for?
To see the new toys, I would say.
See the new toys. It's a market stall, a very nice, expensive market stall, and it's very good. Yeah. And they show equipment. And stuff like that. And a few years ago, they started trying to do these seminars. They started trying to do little corners and areas where they set out a bunch of chairs and people interview people. But it wasn't great, because every 5 seconds there's a bloody siren going off and the setup, and it just wasn't. It wasn't an IFIW, put it that way. So there is a large organisation that's got a lot of funding that is trying to fill that gap.
Okay.
So it's a new event that's starting in London. And I got communicated to about this about 6 months ago. And then they wanted me on the board for it. And you should see the list of people that's on the board. And I'm like, heads of ambulance services and police services and many fire service leaders.
And then there is a little
serving and not serving. Yeah, and then my name's halfway down as some sort of lead for communications. I'm like, oh, they're going to be so disappointed when they meet me. I sit in quite a few rooms every now and again and I go, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
You know, the old imposter syndrome. But anyway, I'm sure it will half hit and half miss the mark, but they're planning on doing this as an annual thing, and it's based on sharing education.
Brilliant.
So it's not going to be a stall with fire engines and things and noise. It's going to be sharing education around the emergency services. So that starts next year, and I think it's in June as well, but I can't remember. But when we're not recording, I'll tell you more about it.
I said today from Manchester only a couple of days ago that I would love some kind of forum. Obviously, the podcast is that forum as well, but
it's always an echo chamber.
There is very little back and forth because obviously I can't then discuss something with the person that was on, but some kind of forum where us as a UK instructors, I don't know if I can call myself an instructor, but we can exchange ideas, not just within our services or maybe 3 services together, you know, because they got some kind of working group, but actually we can learn from each other and implement, oh, that works well for you. How about we'll try that, you know, and it would be such. If
it had more funding behind it, you know, like a massive roundtable, 15-person conversation with great cameras and microphones. It'd be a gift. But the money's not in the sector. But that's why this thing, the organisation that's organising this, are doing it alongside police and ambulance. Brilliant. But there will be a special area built in, and there's a lot of fire service representation on this advisory board because they see that is where there is a gap. Yeah. Because the ambulance services and police have a lot more money and support and resource, whereas for us, as they're recognising and they listen to this, there is a very much a growing. It's the old what was the Field of Dreams thing? Build it and they will come. Yeah. People are interested. Absolutely. People are interested in the fire service. Absolutely. The people in the fire service are obviously interested in the fire service. It's not the biggest emergency service, but there's a lot of passion in there. There's a lot of enthusiasm, and there is some money. You know, we're not in the billions, but we're certainly in the millions. So that's happening next year, and I'll share more about it with you offline, and also we'll share it when it starts coming out and stuff like that. Dude, it's always an absolute pleasure to speak with you. You are a gift of a friend. I wish we could spend more time together, but I also know we're not dead. No. So we've got many more adventures to have in the future.
I'll see you in 4 weeks.
You will see me in 4 weeks. You've been bitten by this stupid Firefighter Challenge book. You absolute saddo.
Now I'm only doing it to get more youngsters into it. You know,
I know. Lead by example. That's why I love you. Right. Love you lots, brother. I'll speak to you soon.
You take care. Bye-bye.
The Firefighters Podcast was created to recognise, acknowledge, inspire, and hopefully even motivate these incredible individuals who have chosen to be part of the first responder community. Our driving purpose is to create a legacy resource for the current and future generations of firefighters and first responders. We get some incredible feedback from listeners and guests, and as the podcast grows, our desire to create longevity and sustainability means that we are asking for the support of our listeners. If you want to support the podcast, if you want to get discounts to our merchandise, hoodies, clothing, coins, patches, tallies, and also access to all of the incredible documents get shared with us from our podcast guests and sector leaders, and please head over to our Patreon page, and for just £3 a month, you can support the future of the podcast. Please finally hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on the platform you're listening, and wherever you're in the world, please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.